We are going to take it all. That is what my greedy daughter-in-law shouted as she stormed into the driveway of my newly built property. She did not just walk in. She stomped in like she owned every single plank of wood and every brick in the foundation. I just stood there sanding a piece of white oak and watched her strut inside. She had a piece of paper in her hand that she waved like a weapon. She thought it was her ticket to a life of luxury. She thought she had won. But the moment she saw what was actually waiting for her inside that massive wooden mansion, she dropped to her knees, and not in prayer, but in absolute devastation. If you are watching this, hit the like button and subscribe, because what I am about to tell you is exactly how you handle people who mistake your silence for weakness. Let me know in the comments where you are watching from. My name is Thaddeus Moore. Most people call me Thad. I am 73 years old. I have lived on the south side of Chicago my entire life. My hands are rough. My skin is like worn leather. When people see me in my stained work overalls covered in sawdust, they see an old black man who probably fixes chairs for a living. They do not see the man who built half the commercial district in this neighborhood back in the 80s. They do not see the man who owns 3 city blocks. And they certainly do not see a man worth millions. I learned a long time ago that in Chicago, you do not flash your money. You bury it in the foundation. You hide it in the walls. My wife, Beatrice. God rest her soul, and I lived by a simple code. Be rich in assets, but look poor in public. It keeps the taxman quiet and the beggars away. But I made one mistake. One fatal mistake. I spoiled my only son, Andre. And Andre brought a viper into our nest. I was in the middle of the main hall of the new construction project when I heard the engine. It was not the sound of a work truck. It was the aggressive roar of a Mercedes G-Wagon engine. I did not even have to look up to know who it was. The car tires screeched on the gravel driveway I had just laid down yesterday. I kept my head down. I kept my sandpaper moving against the grain of the wood. Rhythm, patience, control. These are the things a carpenter needs. These are the things a father needs when he realizes he raised a fool. The heavy oak door slammed open. It hit the wall with a crack that echoed through the empty space. And there she was, Tiffany, my daughter-in-law. She is 34 years old with blonde hair that costs more to maintain than my first car and a face full of makeup that cannot hide the ugliness of her spirit. She was wearing heels that were completely inappropriate for a construction site. Click. Clack, click, clack. The sound of entitlement approaching. Behind her trailed Andre, my son. 38 years old, and he still walked with his shoulders hunched like a teenager in trouble. He was wearing a designer suit that looked too tight on him. He could not even look me in the eye. He was staring at his Italian leather shoes, trying to avoid the gaze of the man who taught him how to walk. "Old man, give me the keys right now," Tiffany screamed. Her voice was shrill. It cut through the peaceful smell of sawdust and pine. "We are taking it all. Do you hear me, Thaddeus? We are taking this house. We are taking the land. And we are taking control." I blew the dust off the wood I was working on. I placed the sanding block down on the workbench. Slowly, deliberately. I wiped my hands on a rag. I looked up. "Good morning to you too, Tiffany," I said. My voice was low. The voice of a man who has shouted over jackhammers and concrete mixers for 40 years. "I see you bought a new car. Is that where my retirement fund went?" She laughed. It was a cruel, sharp sound. "Don't play dumb with me, Thad. We know you are senile. We know you cannot manage your affairs anymore. Look at you. You are 73 years old playing with woodblocks in the middle of nowhere while your assets rot." She stepped closer. She invaded my personal space. She smelled of expensive perfume and desperation. She shoved a crumpled document into my chest. "Read it," she hissed. "Or can you even read anymore without those thick glasses? This is a power of attorney, and this is a transfer of assets." Andre signed it. I signed it. "And since your doctor agreed that you are showing signs of cognitive decline, we executed it this morning." I looked at Andre. He flinched. "Is this true, son?" I asked. Andre mumbled something. He shifted his weight. "Look, Dad, Tiffany says it is for the best. You know, the market is volatile, and you are getting older. We just want to protect the family legacy." "Protect it," I repeated, "or spend it." Tiffany stepped in front of Andre, blocking my view of him. She always did that. She treated him like a pet she needed to shield from the big bad world. "Shut up, old man," she spat. "Here's the reality check you need. We sold your apartment in the city this morning. The buyers are moving in on Monday. Your stuff is in a dumpster out back. Or maybe the movers stole it. I do not really care." My heart skipped a beat, not from fear, but from a cold, clear rage. That apartment was where Beatrice and I lived for 40 years. Every scratch on the floorboards had a memory. Every mark on the wall was from measuring Andre's height as he grew. "You sold my home?" I asked. The calmness in my voice seemed to unsettling her for a second, but she recovered quickly. "It wasn't a home, Thad. It was a rat hole in a bad neighborhood. We did you a favor, and now, since you are homeless, you are going to live here." She spread her arms wide, gesturing to the massive wooden structure around us. "You built this place, right?" she sneered. "Well, good news. You get to live in it, but not upstairs." "Oh, no. The master suite is for Andre and me. The guest wings are for my friends. You are going to live in the basement." The basement. She wanted to put me underground, like an unwanted piece of furniture, like a dog. "There is a nice unfinished room down there next to the boiler," she continued, a cruel smile playing on her lips. "It is warm. It is dark. It is perfect for a confused old man who needs to stay out of the way of the people who actually matter. Now hand over the master keys. We are moving in today." I looked at the document in her hand. I saw the signatures. I saw the stamp from a doctor I had never met. They had been busy. They had planned this. This was not a spur-of-the-moment decision. This was a coup, a hostile takeover of my life. For a moment I wanted to reach out and snap her neck. My hands are strong enough to break a 2x4. Snapping that delicate neck would have been easy. But Beatrice always told me, "Thad, violence is the tool of the ignorant. Use your head. Use your patience." So I did not strike. So I did not. I did not yell. I did not beg. I just reached into the pocket of my overalls. I felt the cold metal of the master key ring. "You really want this house, Tiffany?" I asked. "I do not just want it," she replied, snatching the keys from my hand before I even offered them. "It is mine. It is my palace. It is what I deserve after putting up with your family for 5 years." She turned to Andre. "Grab the bags from the car, Andre. We are home." Andre looked at me one last time. There was shame in his eyes, but it was buried under layers of cowardice. He turned and walked back to the G-Wagon. Tiffany looked at me with triumph. "Go to the basement, Thad, and stay there until I tell you to come out. I have decorators coming in an hour, and I do not want you scaring them with your dirty clothes." She spun around on her heels and marched toward the massive double doors that led to the main living area. She put the key in the lock. She turned it. The mechanism clicked. A heavy, expensive sound. I picked up my sanding block again. I blew a little dust off the surface. "Go ahead," I whispered to myself. "Open it." She pushed the doors open. She stepped across the threshold, ready to see her grand foyer, ready to see the Italian marble floors she assumed were there, ready to see the crystal chandelier she had dreamed of. I watched her back as she walked in. I saw her shoulders stiffen. I saw her stop dead in her tracks. Then I heard it. A gasp. A scream that got stuck in her throat. And then the sound of her knees hitting the floor. Thud. Because Tiffany did not know what this building was. She saw a mansion from the outside. She saw a palace. But I knew what I had built, and it was not a home for her. I walked slowly toward the door, wiping my hands on my rag. I stopped just behind her. "Welcome home," I said. "But before I tell you what she saw that made her drop to her knees, we have to go back. We have to go back 3 months to the day I realized my son had married a monster. The day I decided that being a father did not mean being a victim. It was my 73rd birthday. And that was the night the war truly began. 3 months ago. That was when the first crack in the foundation appeared. It was my 73rd birthday, and I should have been eating barbecue ribs in my backyard with a cold beer. Instead, I was sitting in a restaurant called Le Monde, where the lighting was so dim you needed a flashlight to read the menu, and the waiters looked at my calloused hands like I was going to steal the silverware. This was Tiffany's idea. She said she wanted to treat me. She said I deserved a taste of the high life. What she really meant was that she wanted an audience for her latest performance. We were seated at a round table in the center of the room. Tiffany made a show of complaining about the location until the host moved us to a booth by the window. Andre sat next to her, looking like a terrified child waiting for a scolding. I sat opposite them, wearing my best Sunday suit. It is a good suit. Wool. Tailored 20 years ago. But in this place, surrounded by men in Italian silk, I felt like a relic. The waiter approached, and before I could even ask for a glass of water, Tiffany snatched the wine list. She did not even look at the prices. Her eyes scanned the vintage years. "We will take the Chateau Margaux," she said, snapping the menu shut, "and bring 3 glasses. My father-in-law has never tasted real wine before. He is used to the stuff that comes in a box." I saw the price on the menu before she closed it, $550, for fermented grape juice. I felt a tightening in my chest, not because I could not afford it. I could buy this entire wine cellar if I wanted to, but because of the disrespect, because of the assumption that my money was her playground. Tiffany smiled at me, a predator's smile. "Happy birthday, Thad. You are going to love this. It is an investment in your palate." Investment. That was her favorite word. She used it for shoes. She used it for vacations. She used it for everything except actual work. The waiter poured the wine. I took a sip. It tasted like vinegar and pretension. So Thad, she started twirling the stem of her glass. "I ran into the Davises the other day. You know, the family that owns the steel mills. They were asking about you. Well, about Andre, really. They wanted to know what family he came from." She paused, taking a long, dramatic sip. "I told them you were in construction," she said. "I did not want to say carpenter. It sounds so manual, so lowly. I told them you were a retired developer. It sounds much better, don't you think? Better for Andre's image." I set my glass down. Hard. "There is no shame in manual labor, Tiffany," I said. My voice was steady but gravelly. "Jesus was a carpenter. My father was a carpenter. I built the roof over your head with these hands." She waved her hand dismissively, her diamond bracelet clinking. "Oh, Thad, do not get all biblical on me. I am just saying perception is reality. In our world, people judge you by what you do, not by how much you sweat. And honestly, having a father-in-law who smells like sawdust isn't exactly opening doors for us at the country club." I looked at Andre. I waited for him to defend me. I waited for him to say that his father was a master craftsman, that his father was a legend on the South Side, that his father's sawdust paid for his college degree. Andre took a sip of his $500 wine and looked out the window. Silence. The sound of a son betraying his father without saying a word. Tiffany leaned forward. Her eyes gleamed with a sudden intensity. The insults were just the appetizer. Now came the main course. "Anyway, that is actually what we wanted to talk to you about. The future. Andre and I have a vision, Thad, a big vision. I am starting a lifestyle brand. Luxury home goods. Influencer marketing. It is going to be huge. We already have the business plan." She reached into her designer bag and pulled out a glossy folder. She slid it across the table. It hit my water glass with a clink. "We just need seed capital," she said. "And we know exactly where to get it. That old lot you own on 47th Street. The one with the old brick buildings. It is just sitting there, Thad, gathering dust. It is an eyesore in a gentrifying neighborhood." I looked at her. Really looked at her. She thought that lot was just an old piece of dirt with some crumbling bricks. She saw a vacant lot. She did not know the truth. She did not know that behind those old brick facades were 3 thriving commercial spaces I had renovated from the inside out. A barber shop that had been there for 30 years, a grocery store that fed the neighborhood, and a community center I rented out for $1 a year. She did not know that the land was held in a trust. She did not know that those 3 blocks generated more passive income in a month than she would earn in her entire life. She saw a dusty lot. I saw a legacy, and she wanted me to sell it, to fund a lifestyle brand. I pushed the folder back. I did not open it. "No," I said. Tiffany blinked. Her smile faltered. "Excuse me." I said no, I repeated. "I am not selling the 47th Street property. Not now, not ever. That land is for the community. It is not for selling scented candles on the internet." Tiffany's face turned a shade of red that matched her lipstick. She looked at Andre. "Do something," she hissed. Andre cleared his throat. He looked like he was about to vomit. "Dad, come on." Tiffany has worked really hard on this, and the land, I mean, what do you even do with it? It is just sitting there. You could liquidate it, give us the start we need, and you could keep the rest for your retirement home, liquidation, retirement home. They had it all figured out. Sell my legacy, put me in a home, spend the cash. I leaned forward. My elbows rested on the white tablecloth. Andre, look at me, I said. My voice was low, but it carried the weight of a sledgehammer. Do you have any idea what that land represents? Do you have any idea what I sacrificed to buy those blocks in 1982 when nobody wanted to invest in our neighborhood? I did not buy it to sell it to the first developer who waved a check, and I certainly did not buy it to fund your wife's vanity project. Tiffany slammed her hand on the table. The cutlery jumped. Several heads turned our way. Vanity project, she spat. Her voice rose an octave. You selfish old man. You are sitting on a gold mine and you are letting it rot just to spite us. You are jealous. That is what it is. You are jealous that Andre has a vision and you are just a woodworker. She stood up. Her chair scraped loudly against the floor. You listen to me, Thaddeus Moore. We are going to build this empire with or without you. But if you do not sign that land over, if you do not help your son when he is begging you, then you are done. She pointed a manicured finger at my face. You will not see us. You will not see your future grandchildren. You will die alone in that sawdust-filled apartment, and we will not even come to claim the body. Is that what you want? Is your precious brick pile worth that? The threat hung in the air, heavy, toxic. She was using children that did not even exist yet as bargaining chips. She was weaponizing my own loneliness against me. I looked at Andre again. One last chance, son. One last chance to be a man. Andre, Tiffany. Sit down, everyone is looking, he whispered. She is threatening to cut me out of your life, Andre, I said calmly. Are you going to let her do that? Andre looked at her. He looked at her anger, her fire, her control. Then he looked at me, his old, tired father. She just wants what is best for us, Dad, he muttered. Why do you have to be so stubborn? Just sell the land. That was it. The moment the cord was cut. He did not choose me. He chose the path of least resistance. He chose the viper because he was afraid of its bite. I signaled the waiter. He rushed over, sensing the tension. Check, please, I said. Tiffany scoffed. Oh, so now you are going to pay. I thought you were too principled for that. I took out my wallet. It was an old leather thing, beat up and scarred. Just like me. I pulled out my debit card. I am paying for the wine, I said. And I am paying for the meal you barely touched. Because unlike you, Tiffany, I pay my debts. And unlike you, I know the value of $1. I signed the receipt. I added a 20% tip because the waiter had to deal with her attitude. I stood up. I buttoned my jacket. You want to build an empire, Tiffany? Go ahead, I said, standing over her. Build it. But do not expect me to supply the bricks. And as for that land, you better pray I live a long time. Because the only way you are getting your hands on it is over my dead body. I turned to walk away. And Thad, she screamed after me, causing the entire restaurant to fall silent. When you die, and you will die soon, old man, we are going to take it all anyway. We will take the land, we will take the money, and we will dance on your grave. I did not look back. I walked out of that restaurant and into the cold Chicago night. My heart was breaking for my son, but my mind was already working. They wanted a war. They wanted my assets. They thought I was just a stubborn old carpenter standing in the way of their inheritance. They had no idea. I got into my old pickup truck. It rattled as I started the engine. I drove straight to my office. Not the workshop, the office. The one in the back of the barber shop on 47th Street. The one with the steel-reinforced door and the safe hidden in the floor. I sat at my desk and I pulled out the ledger. The real ledger. The one that listed every asset, every account, every lease. They wanted to take it all. I picked up the phone and dialed a number I had not called in years. It was late, but I knew he would be awake. Goldstein, I said when the voice answered. It is Thaddeus. Wake up, we have work to do. What kind of work? Thad the lawyer asked, his voice raspy with sleep. Asset protection, I said. And bring your shark teeth. I need to move some things around. I need to make sure that on paper I am worth less than the shoes on my feet. But in reality, I looked at the blueprint of the wooden mansion sitting on my desk. The mansion Tiffany thought was for her. In reality, I am going to build a trap, Goldstein. A trap made of wood and greed, and I need you to help me bait it." That night, while Tiffany and Andre were probably celebrating their victory, thinking they had scared the old man into submission, I was laying the first brick of their destruction. I was not just a carpenter, I was an architect. And I was about to design their ruin. The invasion did not happen with a knock on the door. It happened with the sound of a moving truck backing over my rose bushes. It was a Tuesday morning, 2 weeks after the birthday dinner. I was in the kitchen brewing my coffee black and strong when the house shook. My little wooden bungalow on the south side has stood through blizzards and heat waves for 50 years, but it shuddered under the weight of Tiffany's entitlement. I looked out the window. A massive moving van was crushing the hydrangeas Beatrice had planted 3 days before she passed. Andre was directing the driver, waving his arms like he was guiding a plane. Tiffany was already on the porch, kicking my front door with the toe of her boot. "Open up, Thad," she shouted. "We are moving in." I opened the door. She pushed past me without a word, carrying a box labeled Shoes Summer Collection. Andre followed, carrying 3 suitcases. He looked at me with that same cowardly expression he had worn at the restaurant. "Sorry, Dad," he mumbled, not stopping. "Our lease was up. And Tiffany said since the mansion is not ready yet, we should stay here. It is just temporary, just until the paint dries on the big house." Temporary. That word is the favorite lie of the squatter. "You could have asked," I said, closing the door against the cold wind. "This is my house, Andre. Not a hotel. Not a storage unit." Tiffany dropped the box on my hardwood floor with a heavy thud. She looked around the living room, curling her lip like she smelled something rotten. "Ask?" she scoffed. "Why should we ask? We are family. And honestly, Thad, you have too much space here for one old man. Look at this junk. It smells like mothballs and poverty. We are doing you a favor by livening the place up. Plus, we need to be close to the construction site to supervise. I do not trust you to handle the finishes properly." She started pointing at things. My recliner, the oak coffee table I built with my own hands, the display cabinet with Beatrice's ceramic angel collection. "That goes, and that definitely goes," she ordered, snapping her fingers at Andre. "Move it all to the garage. I need space for my yoga mat and my ring lights." I stood in the center of my living room watching them dismantle my life. I wanted to throw them out. I wanted to toss their designer luggage into the street. But I remembered Goldstein's advice. Let them get comfortable, Thad. Let them think they have won. The deeper they dig in, the harder it will be for them to climb out when the trap springs. So I went to the garage, not to move my furniture, but to retrieve something else. When I came back inside an hour later, the air in the house had changed. It was thick with the smell of her perfume covering up the scent of my coffee. I walked down the hallway toward the back bedroom, the small room with the stained glass window. It was Beatrice's prayer room. After she died, I kept it exactly as she left it. Her Bible open on the small altar, her rosary beads, the quilt she was sewing. It was the only place in the house where I could still feel her presence. It was holy ground. The door was open. I stepped inside and my breath hitched in my throat. The altar was gone. The Bible was gone. The quilt was gone. In their place was a rack of bright, gaudy clothes. A massive circular light on a tripod stood where her kneeling bench used to be. A smartphone was mounted in the center of the light facing a mirror. Tiffany was standing there holding up a neon pink dress, talking to her phone. "Hey guys, welcome back to Tiff's Tips," she chirped, her voice fake and high-pitched. "Today we are broadcasting from my new temporary studio. It is a little rustic right now, but we are going to renovate everything. Just wait until you see the mansion we are building. #luxury life, #new beginnings." She saw me in the mirror. She did not stop recording. She just rolled her eyes and waved me away. I walked over to the corner where a black trash bag sat bulging. I opened it. Inside were Beatrice's things. Her Bible was bent. The ceramic angels were chipped. The quilt she had spent 6 months stitching was wadded up at the bottom, stained with what looked like coffee. "What is this?" I asked. My voice was a whisper, but it vibrated in the small room. Tiffany stopped her video. She sighed loud and long. "Oh my God, Thad, do not be dramatic. It is just old junk. I needed the space for my content. This room has the best natural light. Nobody uses prayer rooms anymore. It is creepy. I am repurposing it. I am bringing energy into this dead house. She called my wife's memory junk. She called my sanctuary creepy. I looked at the trash bag. I looked at her. You threw her Bible in the trash, I said. It is just a book, she snapped. Buy a new one. Now get out. You are ruining my lighting. I picked up the bag. I lifted it with the reverence of carrying a body. I did not say a word. I did not scream. I turned around and walked out. I took the bag to my bedroom. I cleaned off the angels. I smoothed out the pages of the Bible. I folded the quilt. I put them in my cedar chest and locked it. Then I went to my toolbox. I did not take out a hammer. I took out a small black case I had bought from a surveillance contact Big Mike introduced me to. If they wanted to turn my house into a stage, I would make sure I had a front row seat to the performance. I waited until they went out for dinner. Tiffany wanted sushi, and she made Andre drive her across town because the local places were too ghetto for her. The moment the taillights of the G-Wagon disappeared, I went to work. I am a carpenter. I know how to hide things in wood. I installed a camera the size of a pinhead in the trim of the living room molding. I put one in the smoke detector in the kitchen. I put one in the hallway facing the prayer room. I put audio recorders behind the outlet covers. I worked fast. My hands were steady. Every screw I turned was a promise. Every wire I connected was a tightening of the noose. They wanted to invade my home. Fine. They were now living in a glass house, and I was the only one holding the stones. I finished just as I heard the car pull up. I sat in my recliner pretending to read the newspaper. When they walked in, they did not even greet me. They walked right past me, arguing about money. My card got declined, Tiffany hissed. That is embarrassing. You said the transfer went through. It did, Andre whispered, looking at me nervously. It is just a bank hold. I will fix it tomorrow. You better, she threatened. I need to order the Italian tiles for the mansion foyer. I smiled behind my newspaper. They had no idea. Later that night, I went out to the porch. The air was cold. I pulled out my burner phone, the one Andre did not know about. I dialed Big Mike. Mike answered on the first ring. He is a man who served 10 years for robbery, but he is the most honest man I know now. He runs my construction crews. He protects my interests. Yeah, boss, Mike said. His voice was deep, like gravel rolling in a mixer. It is Thad, I said. What do you need, Thad? Is it the timber delivery for the West Side project? No, I said, looking back at the house where Tiffany was now live streaming again, screaming at her followers about haters. We are moving to Plan B, Mike. Silence on the line, then a low chuckle. Plan B. You sure, boss? That is the nuclear option. Once we pull that trigger, there is no going back. That boy of yours, he is going to get caught in the blast. He is already caught. Mike, I said, watching Andre pace back and forth in the kitchen, pouring himself a drink. He chose his side. He let her throw Beatrice's Bible in the trash. He let her call his mother's memory junk. He is not my son right now. He is just a man who owes a debt, and I am collecting. All right, Mike said. I will make the calls. I will freeze the supply lines, and I will get the boys ready for the show. When does it go down? Soon, I said. But first I need to let them hang themselves a little higher. I hung up. I went back inside. The house was quiet now. They had gone to bed in the guest room, which they had complained was too small. I walked past my bedroom door. It was slightly ajar. I always keep it closed. I pushed it open silently. The light from the hallway cut across the floor. Tiffany was there. She was on her knees in my closet. She had pulled my heavy steel safe out from the back corner. She was spinning the dial. Her ear was pressed against the cold metal. She looked like a common thief. She was trying combinations. Birthdays, probably. Andre's birthday. My birthday. Beatrice's death day. She did not see me standing in the doorway. She was too focused on her greed. She thought my millions were in there. She thought she would find stacks of cash or deeds to land. I watched her for a full minute. I watched her frustration grow. I watched her kick the safe when it did not open. Damn, old man, she whispered. What is the code? Where is the money? She did not know the safe was empty. I had moved everything to the bank vault 3 days ago. The only thing in there was a single envelope with a letter inside addressed to Andre. A letter that explained exactly why he was being disinherited. I cleared my throat. Tiffany jumped like she had been shot. She spun around, her eyes wide with terror, then instantly narrowing into anger. She stood up, brushing dust off her knees. She did not apologize. She did not look ashamed. You should not sneak up on people, Thad, she snapped, trying to regain her composure. I was looking for extra blankets. It is freezing in this dump. In my safe, I asked calmly, "You think I keep wool blankets in a fireproof steel box?" She crossed her arms. Her face was hard. "I know you have money hidden, Thad. Andre told me about the cash jobs you used to do. You are hoarding it, and that is selfish. We need it for the house, for the family. I was just going to borrow it for the greater good. Borrow it, like she borrowed my home, like she borrowed my dignity." "It is empty, Tiffany," I said. She laughed, a dry, humorless sound. "Yeah, right. You are lying. But do not worry. I will figure it out. I always figure it out." She pushed past me, bumping my shoulder hard. "Go to sleep, old man," she said, walking down the hall. "You look tired, and you are going to need your rest. Tomorrow is a big day. We are meeting with your lawyer to sign the land transfer. Do not forget." She slammed the guest room door. I stood in the hallway alone. I looked at the camera hidden in the smoke detector above my head. The little red light blinked once. It had recorded everything: the attempt to break in, the admission of intent to steal. I walked into my room and pushed the safe back into the closet. Tomorrow was indeed a big day, but not the day she thought it was. She thought she was taking my land. She did not know she was signing her own warrant. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling. I listened to the house settle. I listened to the wind outside. And for the first time in weeks, I smiled. Because I knew something they didn't. The wood I used to build that mansion. The one she was so desperate to own. It was not just wood. It was a Trojan horse. And she had just invited it into her life. "Sleep well, Tiffany," I whispered to the darkness, because the nightmare is just beginning. They brought the devil into my kitchen at 10 in the morning. He did not have horns or a pitchfork. He had a polyester suit that was 2 sizes too small and a briefcase that looked like it was bought at a pawn shop. His name was Mr. Sterling, but there was nothing precious about him. He smelled of stale cigarette smoke and cheap cologne, the kind that tries to cover up the scent of a man who knows he is doing something wrong. Tiffany marched him in like he was a prize poodle. She cleared off my kitchen table, sweeping my newspaper and my cup of coffee aside without asking. "Sit down, Thad," she ordered, pulling out a chair. "This is Mr. Sterling. He is a specialist in estate law. We are here to save you from yourself." I sat down slowly. I let my bones creak. I let my mouth hang open just a little bit. The mask of the confused old man was becoming second nature to me. "Estate law," I mumbled, adjusting my thick glasses. "I already have a will. Beatrice and I wrote it in 1995. "That will is ancient history," Dad Andre said. He was standing by the refrigerator, wringing his hands. Sweat was beading on his forehead even though the house was cold. He looked like a man walking to the gallows. Mr. Sterling opened his briefcase. He pulled out a stack of documents thick enough to choke a horse. He spread them out on the table. "Mr. Moore," he began, his voice oily and fast. "The laws have changed significantly since 1995, specifically regarding inheritance tax. If you pass away with these properties in your name, the government is going to take 40%, maybe more. Your son will be left with nothing but a tax bill he cannot pay. Do you want that? Do you want to burden your only child with debt from the grave?" I looked at the papers. They were full of legal jargon. Transfer of deed, irrevocable trust, grant of power. I looked at Andre. "Is that true, son? The government is going to take it all." Andre looked at Tiffany. She nodded sharply. "A command." "Yes, Dad." Andre lied, his voice cracking. "It is a disaster waiting to happen. The only way to fix it is to transfer the title of the land to us now. To a holding company Tiffany and I set up. It protects the asset. It keeps it in the family. It is just a formality, really. Nothing changes for you. You still live... well, you still live here." I leaned forward, squinting at the papers. I saw the name of the holding company, T&A Future Ventures, LLC, Tiffany and Andre. "So I sign this and the land belongs to you?" I asked. "Technically, yes," Mr. Sterling said, tapping the signature line with an expensive-looking pen that I knew was a fake. "But beneficially, it is still yours. It is just legal protection." I reached out my hand, trembling. I touched the paper. It felt like cold skin. "I do not know," I whispered. "My father always said, never sign anything you cannot read." And my eyes... They are not so good these days. Tiffany slammed her hand on the table. We do not have time for stories about your father, Thad, she snapped. Just sign the damn papers. Why the rush, I asked, looking up at her. If it is just for taxes, we have time. I am not dead yet. Tiffany's eyes went wide. She looked at Andre. It was the look of a cornered animal. Tell him, Andre, she hissed. Tell him the truth. Or at least the version of it he can handle. Andre collapsed into the chair opposite me. He put his head in his hands. He started to cry. Great heaving sobs that shook his shoulders. Dad, please, he choked out. It is not just taxes, it is the bank. The bank, I asked. I took out a business loan. Andre sobbed. For a startup. A tech thing. It went bad, Dad. It went really bad. The market crashed, and I guaranteed the loan personally. How much, I asked, my voice steady. 200,000, Tiffany interjected quickly. He owes $200,000. If we do not show assets, if we do not show collateral by tomorrow morning, the bank is going to seize our accounts. They are going to put Andre in jail for fraud, Dad. Do you want your son to go to prison? Do you want him to be locked up with animals because you were too stubborn to sign a piece of paper? I looked at my son. He was nodding, weeping. Please, Dad. I do not want to go to jail. I looked at them, and I felt a cold pit in my stomach. Not because I was scared, but because I knew the real truth. Big Mike had followed Andre 3 nights ago. He did not go to a tech startup meeting. He went to a warehouse down by the docks, an illegal gambling den run by the Serbian mob. Andre did not owe $200,000 for a business loan. He owed $2 million. And he did not lose it on the stock market. He lost it on crypto futures and poker. He was not afraid of the bank. He was afraid of having his legs broken, or worse. He was lying to me. Even in his desperation, he was lying. He was trying to steal my land to pay off a gambling debt that would swallow him whole anyway. You want me to sign my life's work away to save you from a bad business deal? I asked slowly. It is the only way, Tiffany said, leaning in close. Her eyes were predatory. Sign the paper, Thad. Save your son. Or watch him get dragged away in handcuffs. And remember, if he goes to jail, I am leaving. And you will be all alone. No son, no daughter-in-law. Just a lonely old man dying in a wooden box. She pushed the pen into my hand. I looked at the pen. I looked at the paper. I knew that if I signed this validly, they would have the land. They could sell it tomorrow. They could pay off the mob. And I would be on the street. But I also knew that if I refused right now, Tiffany might get violent. Or Andre might do something stupid. I needed to buy time. I needed them to think they had won so they would lower their guards. I let my hand shake. I let it shake so bad the pen tapped a rhythm against the table. Okay, I whispered. I will save him. I cannot let my boy go to jail. Good decision, old man, Tiffany said, her voice dripping with triumph. Right there. Next to the X. I brought the pen down to the paper. I squinted. I pretended to struggle with the focus. And then I did it. My legal signature, the one on file with the county, the one on my bank accounts, is Thaddeus B. Moore. The B stands for Booker, my mother's maiden name. It is a very specific signature with a loop on the T and a sharp line under the Moore. But on this paper, with my hand shaking violently, I wrote something else. I wrote T.D. Moore. No loop. 1 O in Moore. And the middle initial was wrong. To the naked eye of a greedy daughter-in-law and a sweating son, it looked like the signature of a frail, dying old man. To a court of law, it was scribbles. It was invalid. It was signed under duress by a man who clearly could not see what he was doing. And most importantly, it did not match the legal specimen. I dropped the pen. I slumped back in my chair, breathing hard like I had just run a mile. There I wheezed. It is done. Now leave me alone. Mr. Sterling snatched the papers up before the ink was even dry. He looked at the signature briefly. He did not care. He just wanted his fee. It looks sufficient, he said, stuffing the papers back into his briefcase. I will file these with the county clerk first thing in the morning. Tiffany grabbed the papers from him. She hugged them to her chest like they were a newborn baby. Finally, she breathed. She looked at me. Her face changed. The mask of concern vanished instantly, replaced by a look of pure, unadulterated disgust. You took long enough, old man, she said. You almost gave me a heart attack. She turned to Andre. Get up. Stop crying. We have what we came for. We need to go meet the lender. Andre stood up, wiping his face. He looked at me. There was a moment, just a second, where he looked like he wanted to say thank you, where he looked like he wanted to apologize. But Tiffany grabbed his arm. Move it, Andre. We do not have time for sentiment. They marched out of my kitchen. Mr. Sterling scuttled after them like a cockroach fleeing the light. I sat there in the silence. I listened to the front door slam. I listened to the G-Wagon start up. I stood up. I walked to the window. I watched them drive away. I saw Tiffany pull out her phone. I saw her laughing. I knew exactly who she was calling. Her mother. A woman just as vile as she was who lived in Florida and thought she was aristocracy because she owned a condo with a pool. I pulled out my own device, a small surveillance monitor I kept in the kitchen drawer. I switched the audio feed to the bug I had planted in Andre's car the day they moved in. The sound crackled, and then Tiffany's voice filled my kitchen, clear as a bell. Mom, she was shouting. We did it. The old fool signed. Yes, everything. The commercial lots. The land under the new mansion. All of it. I listened. I poured myself a fresh cup of coffee. He was shaking so bad, Mom, it was pathetic, she laughed. He thinks he is saving Andre from the bank. He has no idea. We are going to liquidate the commercial blocks by Friday. That pays off the debt. And the mansion? Oh, the mansion is all ours. She paused, listening to her mother. What about Thad? She said. Oh, do not worry. As soon as the title transfer is recorded, we are putting him in Shady Pines. You know that state-run facility off the highway? The one that smells like bleach and urine? Yeah, that one. He won't last 6 months. And then, champagne on the yacht. Mom. Champagne on the yacht. The old man is finished, Mom. He is done. I turned off the monitor. I took a sip of my coffee. It was hot, bitter, just the way I like it. Finished, I said to the empty room. I walked over to the calendar on the wall. I circled Friday. That was the day the title transfer would hit the county clerk's office, and that was the day my lawyer Goldstein would be waiting with an injunction proving that the signature was forged and that the man who signed it was medically diagnosed with visual impairment, a diagnosis I had secured from my optometrist 3 days ago just for this moment. But more importantly, Friday was the day the real creditors, the ones Andre actually owed money to, would find out that he did not own the land he promised them. Tiffany thought she had a golden ticket. She had just signed a death warrant. I washed my cup, I dried it, I put it away. Then I went to the closet and put on my work boots. I had a mansion to finish building. And I had a special project to complete in the basement, a little surprise for when they came to drag me away. They thought the old man was finished. The old man was just getting started. The basement of a house tells you the truth that the upper floors try to hide. Upstairs it is all paint and polish and sunlight, but down here it is concrete and shadows and the heavy silence of the earth pressing in on all sides. I was down in the belly of the beast 3 days after I signed that fake signature checking the load-bearing joists. I had built this foundation to hold up a school, but Tiffany thought it was holding up her ego. I wanted to make sure the reinforced steel I had buried in the concrete was settling right. I was running my hand along a cold steel beam when I heard the footsteps on the stairs. They were not the sharp click of Tiffany's heels. They were heavy, dragging steps. The steps of a man walking to his own execution. I did not turn around. I kept my flashlight trained on the sump pump gauge. I knew it was Andre. I could smell his fear. It smelled like sweat and expensive scotch. He had been drinking since breakfast. Dad! His voice was a whisper barely louder than the hum of the furnace. I kept working. I took a wrench from my belt and tightened a bolt that did not need tightening. What do you want, Andre? He walked closer. He stopped just at the edge of the light pool my flashlight made on the floor. I could see his shoes. Italian leather scuffed at the toe. He was ruining good shoes in a dirty basement. That was Andre in a nutshell. Ruining good things because he did not know how to take care of them. I wanted to see if you were okay. I turned then. I shone the light on his face for a second before dropping it to his chest. He looked terrible. His eyes were red, his skin was gray. He looked like he had aged 10 years in 3 days. I am fine, son. Just checking the work. You know me. I like to make sure things are solid before I walk away. He flinched at the words, walk away. He leaned against a wooden support pillar. He looked like he wanted to slide down it and curl into a ball on the concrete. Dad, about the papers. About the transfer. I need you to know something. It is not... I did not want to do it. Tiffany, He stopped. He was choking on his own cowardice. She what, Andre? She held a gun to your head. She forged your hand. Or did she just promise you a life you are too lazy to earn yourself? No, Dad, it is not like that. It is just the debt. The people I owe money to, they are not like the bank. They are bad people. If I do not pay them by Friday. He started to cry again, silent tears running down his face. I looked at him, my only son, the boy I taught to ride a bike, the boy I taught to hold a hammer. Somewhere along the line I had failed him. Or maybe he had just failed himself. I took a step toward him. For a second, just a split second, I thought about telling him. I thought about telling him that the signature was fake, that the land was safe, that I had the money to pay off his mob debt 10 times over if he would just leave that woman and come back to the family. I wanted to save him. It is a father's instinct. Andre, listen to me, I said, my voice softening. You are in trouble. I know that. But you are digging the hole deeper. You are trusting the wrong person. Tiffany does not care about you. She cares about the lifestyle you promised her. If you tell me the truth right now, the whole truth, maybe we can fix this. He looked up. Hope flickered in his eyes. A tiny, fragile flame. Dad, I messed up. I owe $2 million, not 200,000. And Tiffany, she is... He was about to say it. He was about to confess. He was about to break the spell. And then the door at the top of the stairs slammed open. Andre. Her voice was like a whip crack. It echoed off the concrete walls and shattered the moment instantly. The hope in Andre's eyes died. It was replaced by pure terror. Tiffany came down the stairs. She was not wearing heels today. She was wearing boots, ready for war. She stomped down the wooden steps, each footfall a declaration of ownership. "What the hell are you doing down here?" she screamed. "I have been looking everywhere for you. The landscape architect is upstairs waiting to discuss the Japanese garden, and you are down here in the dark with him." She pointed a finger at me like I was a rat she had found chewing on the wires. She marched up to Andre and grabbed him by the lapels of his jacket. She shook him. "Are you crying? Are you seriously crying again? You are pathetic. You are a weak, pathetic little man. Get yourself together." She shoved him back against the pillar. Then she turned to me. Her eyes were cold, dead things. "And you? What are you doing? Trying to poison him against me. Trying to make him feel guilty. It is too late for that old man. The papers are filed. The clock is ticking." I did not say anything. I just reached into the pocket of my overalls and pressed the record button on the device I kept there. I shifted my stance so the camera button on my shirt was facing her directly. "I am just checking the foundation, Tiffany," I said calmly. "A house is only as strong as what is underneath it." She laughed. It was a harsh sound. "Save your metaphors for your carpenter friends, Thad. We do not need your advice. We need you gone." She looked around the basement, curling her lip in disgust. "This place is huge," she muttered. "Too big for storage. Maybe we can turn it into a wine cellar or a home theater. Once we get the smell of old man out of it." She turned back to Andre, who was wiping his eyes, trying to make himself invisible. "Listen to me, Andre," she said, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial hiss, but loud enough for the microphone in my pocket to catch every syllable. "We need to stick to the plan. Friday. As soon as the title clears, we move him." Andre looked at me, then at her. "Move him where, Tiffany? You said he could stay in the basement." Tiffany rolled her eyes. She looked at him like he was an idiot child. "Oh, grow up, Andre. He cannot stay here. Look at him. He is an eyesore. He wanders around in those dirty clothes. He smells. He watches us. I cannot have my friends over for cocktails with him lurking in the basement like a troll. It ruins the aesthetic." She took a step closer to Andre, lowering her voice but still projecting clearly. "I made a call this morning. To that facility on the west side, the state-run one, Green Meadows. I knew Green Meadows. Everyone on the south side knew Green Meadows. It was where people went to die when nobody loved them. It was a warehouse for the forgotten. It smelled of urine and bleach and despair. They had been cited by the state 10 times for neglect. They sedated the patients to keep them quiet. Tiffany, that place is... It is a hell hole," Andre whispered, horrified. "It is affordable," Tiffany snapped. "And it is secure. They have a memory care unit. We will tell them he wanders. We will tell them he gets violent." Dr. Evans already wrote the referral letter after I gave him that bonus. They will keep him medicated, Andre. He won't even know where he is. He will be happy. He will be sleeping all day." She smiled. A terrible, predatory smile. "And the best part is the state pays for most of it once we show them he has no assets." Which he won't. Because as of Friday, all his assets belong to us. We get the mansion, we get the commercial rents, we pay off your Serbian friends, and we live the life we deserve. And he fades away. She looked at me. She did not know she was looking at her executioner. She thought she was looking at a victim. "Do you hear that, Thad?" she said, raising her voice. "We found you a nice home, new friends, bingo nights. You are going to love it. Much better than living in a basement." I looked at her. I memorized her face. I wanted to remember exactly what evil looked like when I destroyed it. "You have it all figured out, don't you, Tiffany?" I said softly. "I do," she replied. "Because unlike you and your son, I am a closer. I do what needs to be done." She grabbed Andre's hand. "Come on. The landscaper charges by the hour. Leave him to his dust." She pulled Andre toward the stairs. He stumbled, following her like a dog on a leash. He paused on the first step. He looked back at me. I waited. I waited for him to say no. I waited for him to say, "That is my father, and you will not put him in a state home." I waited for him to be the man I raised. He looked at me. His eyes were full of tears, full of shame, full of regret. But he did not say a word. He turned his head and followed her up the stairs. I listened to their footsteps fade. I listened to the door at the top of the stairs slam shut. I stood there in the silence of the basement. The recording device was still running in my pocket. It had caught everything. The conspiracy, the bribery of a doctor, the plan to commit fraud against the state, the admission of the gambling debt. It was enough to send them both to prison for 10 years. But that was not what hurt. What hurt was the silence of my son. He had heard her plan to put me in a place where they drug old men into oblivion. He had heard her plan to steal everything I worked for. And he had walked away. I reached into my pocket and stopped the recording. I looked at the concrete floor. I looked at the strong wooden beams I had placed with my own hands. I had built this house for a family. But there was no family here, just a parasite and a host. I took a deep breath. The air tasted cold and metallic. I was done. The father in me died in that basement. The man who made excuses for his son died in that basement. All that was left was Thaddeus Moore, the businessman, the survivor, the man who knows that when a piece of wood is rotten, you do not try to save it. You cut it out, you burn it, and you build something new in its place. I walked over to the corner of the basement where my tool bench was. I picked up a heavy sledgehammer. I weighed it in my hand. I did not use it, not yet, not. Instead, I picked up my phone. I dialed Big Mike. "They are moving to Phase 3, Mike," I said. "Friday is the day." "Copy that, boss," Mike said. "The boys are ready." "And Mike," I added, my voice flat and hard. "Yeah, Thad, there is no son anymore. Andre is just another liability. Treat him accordingly." Silence on the line, then a soft sigh. "Understood, boss. I am sorry." "Do not be," I said. He made his choice. Now I am going to make mine. I hung up. I walked up the stairs. I turned off the basement light. I left the darkness behind me. I had a show to prepare for, and I needed to make sure my costume was perfect for the final act. They wanted a senile old man. I would give them King Lear. But this time the king would not die in the end. The king would be the only one left standing. Saturday arrived with a parade of luxury cars navigating the mud of the construction site. Tiffany called it an exclusive hard hat open house. She had sent out invitations printed on heavy cardstock with gold leaf lettering to every socialite and wannabe influencer in Chicago. She wanted to show off the skeleton of her future palace. She wanted to stand amidst the framing studs and raw plywood and tell people about the empire she was building. I called it a circus in a lumberyard. The house was not even close to finished. The roof was on, but the windows were just holes covered in plastic sheeting. The floor was subflooring. The air smelled of sawdust and wet concrete. But Tiffany had hired a staging company to set up a bar on the unfinished patio and hung string lights from the exposed rafters. It looked ridiculous, like putting a diamond necklace on a pig. At 4 p.m, Tiffany found me in the garage where I was organizing my tools. She was wearing a hard hat that had been spray-painted pink and bedazzled with rhinestones. She held out a hanger. On it was a white waiter's jacket and a black bow tie. "Put this on," she said. I looked at the jacket. It was cheap polyester. It looked like a costume from a high school play. "I am a carpenter, Tiffany," I said, not taking the hanger. "I built this frame. I do not serve drinks in it." She threw the hanger at me. It clattered against my chest and fell to the floor. "Today, you are whatever I say you are," she hissed. My caterer had a call out. "I am short a server. And honestly, it is the least you can do after that stunt with the signature yesterday. You scared me half to death. Now put it on. And listen to me closely, Thad." She stepped over a circular saw to get in my face. "You are not my father-in-law today. You are not the owner of this land. You are the security guard. A nice charity case, old man, we keep around to watch the lumber at night. If anyone asks, you nod and smile. You do not talk about family. You do not talk about the past. You pour wine and you pick up napkins. Do you understand?" I looked at the jacket on the floor. I thought about the recording in my pocket. I thought about the date circled on the calendar. Friday. Just 5 days away. I bent down slowly. My knees cracked. I picked up the jacket. "I understand," I said. "Good," she sniffed. "And try to look less dusty. These are important people, Thad. People who matter. Do not embarrass me." She spun around and marched out, her heels sinking slightly into the dirt floor. I put on the jacket. It was tight across the shoulders. My arms are thick from 50 years of lifting timber. The sleeves were too short. I looked ridiculous. I looked like a bear trying to dress up as a penguin. I walked out to the patio. The guests were arriving, men in suits that cost more than my truck. Women in dresses that defied the Chicago wind. They walked gingerly over the gravel, holding their champagne flutes like holy relics. Andre was there standing by the bar. He was already drunk. I could tell by the way he was leaning too heavily on the counter. He saw me in the waiter's jacket. He looked away. He pretended to examine the label on a vodka bottle. I picked up a tray of hors d'oeuvres, smoked salmon on crackers. I started to circulate. The guests barely saw me. To them, I was just furniture, a pair of hands holding food. "Oh, Tiffany, this place is going to be magnificent," one woman gushed, waving a hand at the empty air. "The sightlines are incredible." Tiffany beamed. "I designed it myself," she lied. "I wanted an open flow, something that really captures the essence of modern luxury. We are importing the marble from Carrara next week." I stood there holding the tray, listening to her lie about the house I designed, listening to her take credit for the beams I placed. "Who is the old guy?" a man asked, pointing his glass at me. Tiffany laughed, a light tinkling sound that made my skin crawl. "Oh, that is just Thaddeus. He is our night watchman. Poor old thing has been working this lot for years. We decided to keep him on. You know Charity. He gets confused sometimes, so just ignore him if he stares." The man chuckled. "That is very noble of you, Tiff. Noblesse oblige, right?" I gripped the tray so hard the metal bent slightly under my thumb. Night watchman, charity case, confused. I moved away before I dropped the salmon on his shoes. Then I saw her, walking up the driveway, avoiding the mud with the grace of a woman who has walked through steel mills and boardrooms, was Elena Ricci. My heart stopped for a second. Then it started beating with a different rhythm, a rhythm of opportunity. Elena Ricci is the CEO of Ricci Steel. She supplies half the construction material in the Midwest. She is worth $500 million. And she is one of my oldest friends. We did business together back in the 80s when she was just taking over her father's company, and I was the only contractor who would give her the time of day. We built the West Side Community Center together. Tiffany did not know this. Tiffany saw a wealthy woman in a $5,000 Valentino dress and saw a target for social climbing. I watched Tiffany rush over to her. "Mrs. Ricci," Tiffany squealed, almost tripping over a stack of 2x4s. "I am so honored you came. I know you are incredibly busy." Elena looked at Tiffany with cool, detached eyes. She adjusted her sunglasses. "I was curious," she said. Her voice was like smoked glass, smooth and dark. "I heard about this project, a massive timber frame in the suburbs. It is unusual. I wanted to see the craftsmanship." Tiffany preened. "Oh yes, we spared no expense. My husband and I wanted the best. Please come in. Let me get you a drink." She snapped her fingers in my direction. She did not even look at me. "Boy," she called out. "Wine! From Mrs. Ricci! Now! Boy!" The word hung in the air, heavy, ugly. Elena stiffened. I saw her head turn slightly. She looked at Tiffany, then she looked toward me. I lowered my head. I grabbed a bottle of red wine, a heavy, expensive Cabernet. I poured a glass. I walked toward them. My boots crunched on the subfloor. I kept my eyes down. "Here's your wine, ma'am," I mumbled, holding out the tray. Tiffany snatched the glass. She turned to hand it to Elena. And that is when I made my move. I did not trip. I am not clumsy. I have walked on beams 50 feet in the air without a harness. I do not stumble. But I let my foot catch on a loose nail head. I let my shoulder dip. I let the tray tilt. The bottle of wine, which I had left uncorked on the tray, slid. It tipped. And a river of dark red liquid launched itself into the air. It missed Tiffany completely. It hit Elena Ricci square in the chest. The splash was spectacular. The wine soaked into the white silk of her bodice, instantly turning it the color of fresh blood. It dripped down her skirt. It splattered onto her shoes. The silence that followed was absolute. The music seemed to stop. The chatter died. Every eye in the place turned to us. Tiffany screamed. It was a sound of pure horror. Not for Elena, but for her social standing. "You idiot," she shrieked. "You senile, clumsy old fool. Look what you did. That is a Valentino." She grabbed a napkin and started scrubbing at Elena's chest, making it worse. Elena did not scream. She did not move. She just looked down at her dress, then up at me. I stood there, the empty tray hanging from my hand. "I am so sorry, ma'am," I said. My voice was calm. "My arthritis. My hands just let go." Tiffany pushed me hard. I stumbled back. "Get out," she screamed. "Get out of my sight. You are fired. You are useless. Get in the kitchen right now before I have you arrested." She turned back to Elena, frantic. "Mrs. Ricci, I am so sorry. I do not know why we keep him around. He is just a charity case. I will pay for the dress. I will pay for everything. Please forgive us." Elena gently pushed Tiffany's frantic hands away. She was calm, terrifyingly calm. "It is just wine," she said. She looked at me. Her eyes locked with mine. There was no anger in them. There was recognition. And there was a question. She stepped toward me, ignoring Tiffany completely. She leaned in close, pretending to inspect the damage on her skirt, but her face was next to my ear. "Thaddeus," she whispered so low only I could hear. "That was a waste of a good vintage. What is the play here, boss? Why are you wearing that monkey suit?" I did not answer. I just winked. Elena pulled back. A tiny smile played on her lips. She turned to Tiffany. "Do not worry about the dress," she said. "Accidents happen, especially on active construction sites. Perhaps you should be more careful about who you treat as charity." Tiffany did not understand. She was too busy hyperventilating. "Get him out of here, Andre," she yelled. "Get him into the kitchen, now!" Andre grabbed my arm. He dragged me away. He was gripping me hard, his fingers digging into my bicep. He was shaking. "Jesus, Dad," he hissed as he pulled me through the crowd. "Why? Why do you have to ruin everything?" I did not say anything. I just let him drag me. I saw the guests whispering. I saw them laughing behind their hands. Not at me. At the spectacle. At the chaos. He shoved me into the temporary kitchen they had set up in the garage. It was full of catering boxes and dirty dishes. "Stay here," he ordered. "Do not move. Do not breathe. Tiffany is going to kill you." He stormed out, slamming the door. I stood there in the semi-darkness. I took off the white jacket. I folded it neatly. I placed it on a stack of boxes. I waited. 10 minutes later, the door flew open. Tiffany came in. She looked like a demon. Her makeup was smeared. Her eyes were wild. She had lost her audience, and now she needed a punching bag. She marched up to me. She did not speak. She did not yell. She raised her hand and she slapped me. Hard. Her ring cut my cheek. My head snapped to the side. The taste of copper filled my mouth. It was a good slap. A strong slap. The kind of slap that ends a marriage or starts a war. She stood there, breathing heavy, her chest heaving. "You are done," she whispered. "You are done living in my house. You are done eating my food. Tonight you sleep in the shed. And tomorrow I am driving you to Green Meadows myself. I do not care what the paperwork says. I do not care about the law. You are going to rot in that asylum if it is the last thing I do." I slowly turned my head back to face her. I touched my cheek. I looked at the blood on my finger. I did not hit her back. I did not scream. I just looked at her. "Is that it, Tiffany?" I asked quietly. "Is that all you have got?" She looked at me confused by my lack of fear. "Just get out of my sight," she spat. I walked past her. I walked out of the garage. I walked past the party where the guests were awkwardly trying to restart their conversations. I walked past Elena Ricci, who raised her ruined wine glass to me in a silent toast. I walked down the driveway to my old truck. I touched my cheek again. It stung. But the pain was good. It was clarifying. It was the final permission I needed. She had put her hands on me. She had drawn blood. The grace period was over. I got in my truck. I started the engine. I was not going to the shed. I was going to the Ritz-Carlton. I had a suite booked under the name of my holding company. I had a hot shower waiting. And I had a phone call to make to Goldstein. The trap was set. The bait was taken. And now the hunter was coming home. Friday could not come fast enough. The morning after my daughter-in-law slapped me, I did not wake up in a cold shed surrounded by lawnmowers and spiders. I woke up in a king-sized bed at the Ritz-Carlton. The sheets were Egyptian cotton. The room smelled of lavender and old money. I touched my cheek. The cut from Tiffany's ring had scabbed over, leaving a thin, angry line. It throbbed a little, but the pain was distant. It was the pain of a memory, not a current reality. I ordered room service, steak and eggs, coffee, fresh squeezed orange juice. I ate it sitting by the window looking out over the Chicago skyline. Somewhere out there in the gray morning mist, Tiffany and Andre were probably waking up in my house. They were probably laughing about how they had finally broken the old man. They probably thought I was shivering in the backyard waiting for their permission to exist. They were wrong. At 9 o'clock sharp, I walked into the offices of Goldstein and Associates on the 42nd floor of the Hancock Building. Saul Goldstein has been my lawyer for 30 years. He is 75 years old, 2 years older than me, and he looks like a retired boxer who learned to hit with contracts instead of fists. He wears three-piece suits that cost more than a Honda Civic, and he has a smile that makes insurance adjusters wet their pants. "Thaddeus," he said, standing up from his mahogany desk, "you look like hell. And who hit you?" I sat down. I did not waste time with pleasantries. "My daughter-in-law," I said. Saul's eyes narrowed. The playful sparkle vanished, instantly replaced by the cold, hard stare of a predator sensing blood. "Assault," he asked. "Assault, battery, and elder abuse," I replied. "But that is for later, Saul. Today we are talking about money and land." I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out a copy of the document they had forced me to sign. The transfer of deed. The one with my shaky fake signature. I slid it across the polished desk. "They think this gives them the land," I said. "They think they own the commercial blocks. They think they own the mansion site. They filed it yesterday." Saul picked up the paper. He put on his reading glasses. He scanned the document. Then he started to laugh. It was a dry, raspy sound like dry leaves scraping together. "This is adorable," he said. "T.D. Moore, very creative, Thad. But even if you had signed this in your own blood with a notary witnessing it, it would not matter." He tossed the paper back onto the desk with contempt. "Because you cannot transfer what you do not own," he said, leaning back in his chair. "Exactly," I said. "See, Andre and Tiffany made a classic amateur mistake. They assumed. They assumed that because my name was on the mailbox, my name was on the deed. They assumed that because I built the buildings, I held the title personally. But 20 years ago, when Beatrice got sick, we sat down with Saul. We looked at the future. We knew Andre was weak. We knew he had a hole in his hand where money fell through. So we created a fortress. The Beatrice Moore Memorial Trust. Every piece of land I bought, every building I renovated, every commercial lease I signed went straight into the trust. I am the trustee. I manage it. I have the right to live on the properties. I have the right to build on them. But I do not own them. The trust owns them. Owns. And the trust has a very specific charter. It is irrevocable, Saul said, tapping his temple. And the beneficiary is not Andre. It never was. The beneficiary is the community I said, the South Side, educational programs, housing initiatives. Andre gets a stipend if he behaves, but he never gets the principal, and he certainly cannot sell the land to pay off a gambling debt. So this document, Saul said, gesturing to Tiffany's precious contract, is toilet paper. It is legally void. They are trying to sell a bridge they do not own, but they do not know that yet, I said. And I do not want them to know. Not until Friday. Saul nodded slowly, understanding the game. Friday. The day the creditors come calling. So what is the play for today, Thad? He asked. I leaned forward. The cash, I said. They have my credit cards. They have access to the joint checking account I use to run the household. Tiffany has been bleeding it dry. I want to cut the flow. Saul turned to his computer. His fingers flew across the keyboard. Okay, let us look at the liquid assets. We have the operating account for the construction. We have your personal savings. We have the investment dividends. Total liquidity right now is sitting at, he whistled, $4.2 million. A good year, Thad. Move it, I said. Where to? Saul asked. Switzerland, I said. Or the Caymans. I do not care. Just get it out of the domestic jurisdiction. Get it somewhere Tiffany cannot touch it even if she hires a team of hackers. I want it gone, Saul. I want it to vanish like smoke. Saul typed a few commands. He looked at me over the rim of his glasses. You know this is the nuclear option, Thad. Once I initiate this wire transfer, your local accounts will be empty. Your cards will decline. The automatic payments for the utilities at your house, the ones Tiffany is currently enjoying, they will bounce. Good, I said. Let them sit in the dark. And Andre Saul asked softly. He is an authorized user on the Platinum card, the one with the $50,000 limit. Cancel it, I said without hesitation. Revoke his authorization and report the card as compromised. Compromised, Saul repeated. Yes, I said, touching the cut on my cheek. I was coerced. I was under duress. My financial security has been compromised by a hostile actor. Kill the card, Saul. Saul hit the enter key. It is done, he said. The wire is initiated. The funds will be in Zurich by lunchtime. I watched the screen. I watched the numbers drop. 4 million, 2 million, 0. Wait, I said. Saul paused. Leave something, I said. How much? I thought about the $500 wine. I thought about the $700 allowance she offered the mother in that other story I heard once. I thought about the value they placed on me. $100, I said. 100, Saul asked, raising an eyebrow. 100, I confirmed. Enough to buy a tank of gas and a cheap meal. I want them to see that number. I want them to see exactly what I think they are worth. Saul smiled. He typed in the amount. $100.00 remained in the account. The rest was gone, safe, untouchable. Now I said, standing up. We wait for the scream. I did not have to wait long. Across town in a showroom called Marble and Stone, Tiffany and Andre were standing in front of a slab of Italian Calicotta gold marble. It was white with thick gray and gold veining. It cost $12,000 for the slab. Tiffany wanted 3 of them for the master bathroom. I know this because I was listening. The bug in Andre's pocket was transmitting clear audio to my phone, which was resting on Saul's desk. This is perfect, Tiffany was saying, her voice echoing in the showroom. It screams luxury. Andre, give the man the card. We need this delivered by tomorrow. I heard the rustle of clothing. I heard Andre pull out his wallet. Here you go, Andre said, sounding confident for the first time in days. Put it on the Amex and add the expedited shipping. I heard the beep of the card reader, then silence, then a second beep. I am sorry, sir. The salesman said, his voice polite but firm. It declined. Tiffany laughed, a nervous, annoyed laugh. Do not be silly. That is a platinum card. It has no limit. Try it again. You probably put the chip in wrong. I heard the beep again. Declined, the salesman repeated. It says, pick up card. Contact issuer. What does that mean? Tiffany shrieked. Andre, what did you do? Did you forget to pay the bill? No, Andre stammered. It is autopay. It is Dad's account. It is always paid. Here, try mine, Tiffany snapped. She slapped her own card down, the one she had paid off using my money last month. Beep, declined. What is going on? She screamed. I sat in Saul's office and I took a sip of water. The salesman's voice dropped an octave. Ma'am, I am sorry, but the system is showing insufficient funds on both cards. Insufficient funds, Tiffany yelled. Do you know who we are? My father-in-law owns half of the South Side. We have millions. Not anymore, you don't, I whispered to the empty office. Andre, check the app, Tiffany ordered. Check the bank balance right now. This is a mistake. A glitch. I heard Andre fumbling with his phone. I heard his heavy breathing. Okay, logging in, he muttered. Okay, here it is. The main account. It should have... Silence. Long, terrible silence. Tiffany hissed. What does it say? Andre's voice was a ghost, a whisper of pure terror. $100. What Tiffany asked. $100. Andre repeated, his voice rising in panic. That is it, Tiff. That is all there is. The savings, the checking, the investment dividends, it is all zero. Just $100 in the checking. No, Tiffany screamed. No, that is impossible. He had millions. He told us. We saw the statements. Where did it go? I do not know. Andre wailed. It says, wire transfer, external. Zurich. Tiffany screeched. Why would he send money to Zurich? He is a carpenter, Andre. He does not know where Zurich is. He has been hacked. That is it. He has been hacked. We have to call the bank. We have to stop this. And then the realization hit her. I could hear it in the silence that followed. Or, she whispered, or he knows. He cannot know. Andre said, desperate to believe the lie. He signed the papers, Tiff. He is confused. He probably clicked on a spam email or something. Call the bank, Tiffany ordered. Fix this, Andre. Fix this right now, or so help me. God, I will leave you right here in this tile shop. I looked at Saul. Saul looked at me. Showtime, Saul said. He picked up his office phone. He dialed Andre's number. I heard Andre's phone ring through the bug. Hello, Andre answered, breathless. Is this the fraud department? No, mister. More Saul said, his voice smooth and deadly. This is Saul Goldstein, your father's attorney. Goldstein, Andre said, confusion clouding his panic. Why? Why are you calling? I am calling to notify you that your access to all accounts associated with Thaddeus Moore has been permanently revoked, Saul said. Furthermore, we have flagged several recent transactions as fraudulent. An investigation has been opened. Fraudulent, Andre squeaked. But Dad signed. Your father is sitting right here, Mr. Moorsall interrupted, and he is very lucid and very disappointed. I heard a gasp. It was Tiffany. She must have been pressing her ear to the phone. Let me talk to him, she screamed. Put the old man on. Saul looked at me, offering the receiver. I shook my head. Mr. Moore has nothing to say to you, Saul said, but he does have a message. What is it? Andre whispered. The message is this, Saul said, looking at the sticky note I had written for him. You have $100. Spend it wisely. It is the last inheritance you will ever see. Saul hung up. Through the bug, I heard the sound of a phone hitting the floor. Then I heard a scream that sounded like glass shattering. We are ruined, Tiffany wailed. We are ruined. I reached out and turned off the audio feed. I stood up. I buttoned my jacket. Thank you, Saul, I said. My pleasure, Thad Saul replied. But you know, this is just the first wave. They are going to come for you. They are going to come to the construction site. They are going to try to physically intimidate you. I know, I said. I walked to the door. I put my hand on the knob. Let them come, I said. I built that house, Saul. I know every nail. I know every shadow. And I know exactly where the trap door is. I left the office. I took the elevator down. I had emptied their pockets. Now I had to empty their hope. I drove to the hardware store. I needed a few things. Heavy-duty locks, chains, and a new sign for the front gate. Because when they showed up to scream at me, I wanted to make sure they understood exactly what kind of property they were standing on. The bank account was empty. But the basement was full of surprises. They returned to the construction site the next day like a virus that refuses to be flushed out. I was up on a scaffold installing the tongue and groove ceiling in what was supposed to be the library. The smell of cedar filled the air, clean and sharp. It was the only thing keeping me calm. Down below, the gravel crunched under the tires of the G-Wagon. Tiffany stepped out. She was not wearing her construction boots today. She was wearing stilettos again, defying the mud and the laws of physics. Andre trailed behind her, looking like a man who had just survived a firing squad only to be told he had to go back for a second round. They walked into the main hall. The space was vast. I had designed it to be a communal gathering space, a place for workshops and town halls. Tiffany saw it as her throne room. She looked around at the white oak paneling I had spent the last week installing. It was beautiful wood, locally sourced, sustainable, solid. Tear it down, she said. Her voice echoed in the empty space. I climbed down the ladder slowly. I hooked my hammer into my belt. Excuse me, I said. Tear it all down, Thad, she repeated, waving her hand dismissively at my work. It is too rustic, too peasant. I had a vision last night. I realized why I was so unhappy with this place. It smells like a cabin. I am not a lumberjack, Thad. I am a queen. She pulled a tablet out of her bag and shoved it in my face. On the screen was a photo of a palace in Dubai, floors made of black marble, walls covered in dark exotic wood that shone like glass. This is what I want, she declared. Gaboon ebony for the walls, and for the floors, Italian calicotta viola, the purple vein kind. I want it everywhere. The foyer, the hall, the kitchen. I looked at the picture. Then I looked at her. Tiffany, I said, my voice steady, do you have any idea what Gaboon ebony costs? It is an endangered wood. It has to be imported. And calicotta viola, you are talking about $300 a square foot just for the material. She smiled. It was the smile of a shark sensing blood in the water. I do not care about the cost, Thad. We have the assets now. We have the deed. And thanks to your little banking error yesterday, we are going to leverage the property value. I already called a supplier, high-end imports. They are on their way. She checked her diamond-encrusted watch. In fact, they should be here any minute. Andre made a choking sound in the back of his throat. He knew. He knew the bank accounts were empty. He knew the credit cards were dead. He knew they were standing on a financial landmine. Tiff, he whispered, tugging on her sleeve. Maybe we should stick to the budget. The oak is nice. It is paid for. Shut up, Andre, she snapped. You have no vision. This is why you failed at crypto. You think small. A heavy diesel engine roared outside. Air brakes hissed. Through the plastic-covered window openings, I saw a massive flatbed truck pull up. On the side, in gold letters, it said, Luxury Stone and Timber. A man climbed out of the cab. He was huge. He looked like he ate concrete for breakfast. He was wearing a suit that was too tight across the chest, and he carried a clipboard like a weapon. This was Mr. Russo. I knew of him. He was not a supplier you messed with. He was the kind of supplier who put liens on your property before the cement was dry. Tiffany clapped her hands. Oh, perfect. Go let him in, Thad, and try not to look so pathetic. I walked to the door. Russo met me at the threshold. He looked me up and down, taking in my dusty overalls and my work boots. Then he looked past me to Tiffany. Delivery for more, Russo grunted. Special order, ebony paneling and 20 slabs of viola marble. Total invoice is $540,000. $540,000. Andre turned gray. He leaned against a stud to keep from falling over. Tiffany did not blink. She walked forward, extending her hand. I am Tiffany Moore, she said, the lady of the house. Bring it in. Russo did not move. He did not shake her hand. He tapped his clipboard with a thick finger. Payment on delivery, lady, he said, or a guaranteed contract signed by the property owner. I ran the credit card on file this morning. It bounced. Hard. Tiffany's smile froze. She shot a look of pure venom at Andre. It is a banking glitch, she lied smoothly. We are switching institutions. My father-in-law here... She gestured at me like I was a piece of luggage. He just transferred the liquid assets to Zurich. It takes a few days to clear, but the land is ours. We have the deed. Russo looked at me. He had been in this business a long time. He knew a hustler when he saw one, but he also knew the value of the land we were standing on. I do not care about Zurich, Russo said. I care about my stone. I need a signature. A personal guarantee. From him. He pointed at me. Not you, he said to Tiffany. Your credit score is lower than the temperature outside. I checked. But Thaddeus Moore, I know that name. That name pays its bills. Tiffany turned to me. Her eyes were pleading and hateful at the same time. Sign it, Thad, she hissed. Sign the paper. Vouch for us. The money will clear next week, and we will pay it off. I looked at Russo. I looked at the truck full of materials that would ruin this building. I stepped forward. Let me see the contract, I said. Russo handed me the clipboard. It was a standard liability contract. The undersigned guarantees payment in full within 30 days. I reached into my pocket. I pulled out my reading glasses. The cheap ones from the drugstore. I put them on slowly. Tiffany was tapping her foot. Hurry up, old man. I took a pen from my pocket. I looked at the signature line. Underneath it, it said, guarantor/owner. I looked at Tiffany. "You want this stone?" I asked. "I want it," she said. "I need it." "Okay," I said. I pressed the pen to the paper, but I did not sign my name on the line. I drew a line through the word guarantor. I drew a line through the word owner. And in my neat block print, the print of a draftsman, I wrote technical advisor/site inspector. Then I signed my name, Thaddeus Moore. I handed the clipboard back to Russo. Russo looked at the change. He looked at me. I gave him a look that said, "I am doing what I am told, but I am not paying for this mess." Russo shrugged. He did not care about the titles. He saw a signature from a Moore. He figured if the check bounced, he would just slap a mechanic's lien on the building and take the property. He did not know the property belonged to an irrevocable trust that was immune to personal debt liens incurred by unauthorized tenants. "Good enough," Russo grunted. He turned to his crew. "Unload it," he shouted. Tiffany squealed with delight. She pushed past me and ran out to the truck, touching the cold stone slabs like they were lovers. "You see, Andre," she shouted, "you just have to be firm. Power respects power." Andre looked at me. He was still shaking. "Dad," he whispered, "how are we going to pay for this $500,000? We don't have it." I took off my glasses. I put them back in my pocket. "I don't know who 'we' is, son," I said calmly. "I just signed off that the materials were delivered and inspected. I am just the technical advisor. You heard her. She is the lady of the house." Andre stared at me. He did not understand. He thought I had just saved them. He did not realize I had just handed them an anchor while they were treading water. The crew started hauling the black wood and the purple marble into the house. They piled it in the center of the room, covering my beautiful oak floors. It looked like a mausoleum. Tiffany stood on top of a stack of ebony planks. She looked down at me. "Get back to work, Thad," she ordered. "Start ripping out that cheap paneling. I want the black wood up by tomorrow." I looked at her. "No," I said. She froze. "What did you say?" "I said no," I repeated. "I am an old man, Tiffany. My back hurts. And I am technically retired. You have your materials, you have your vision, you install it." I turned around and walked toward the door. "Where are you going?" she screamed. "I am going to lunch," I said. "And then I am going to take a nap." Being a security guard is exhausting. I walked out to my truck. I sat in the cab and watched them for a moment. Tiffany was screaming at the delivery guys, trying to boss them around. Andre was sitting on a pile of marble, his head in his hands. They had $500,000 of stolen inventory sitting in a house they did not own, bought on credit. They did not have guaranteed by a man who had explicitly signed as a non-financial advisor. When Russo came for his money in 30 days, he wouldn't just sue them, he would break them. But the best part was yet to come. Because Tiffany wanted the black wood installed. She wanted the marble floors laid. And she didn't know how to drive a nail. She was going to have to hire contractors. She was going to have to spend money she didn't have to install materials she couldn't afford in a house she was about to lose. I started the truck. I drove to the hardware store. I bought a new padlock, a heavy-duty one, because pretty soon I was going to need to lock something up, and it wasn't the house, it was the trap door, and they were already falling through it. It was Thursday night. The air smelled of rain and impending doom. The mansion stood against the dark sky like a black tombstone. Tiffany had gotten her way. The siding was up. The windows were in. The ridiculous Gaboon ebony paneling she had screamed for was installed, covering the warm white oak I had chosen. The purple veined marble floors were laid down cold and slippery as ice. To anyone driving by, it looked like a palace. To me, it looked like a monument to greed built on a foundation of sand. I was in the backyard cleaning up the last of the construction debris. I wanted the site clean, not for her, for the future, for the students who would be walking these grounds in less than 48 hours. I heard the G-Wagon pull up. It was loaded to the roof. Tiffany jumped out. She was wearing a white fur coat even though it was only October. She looked at the house and she actually squealed, a high-pitched sound that grated on my nerves like a saw hitting a nail. "We are here!" she shouted to the night air. "We made it, Andre. We are finally home." Andre climbed out of the driver's side. He looked exhausted. He was carrying a box of champagne. He looked at the house, but he did not smile. He looked at it with the wary expression of a man who knows he has bought something he cannot afford to keep. They walked up the steps. Tiffany unlocked the front door with the key I had given her. the key that only worked on the front door lock and nothing else. I walked around to the front, wiping my hands on a rag. I needed to get my tool belt, which I had left on the porch railing. When I got there, I saw them. 3 black heavy-duty trash bags were sitting on the gravel right at the bottom of the stairs. They were wet from the damp ground. One of them had a tear in the side, and I could see the sleeve of my favorite flannel shirt poking out. I stopped. I looked at the bags. I looked up at the porch. Tiffany was standing there looking down at me. She had a glass of champagne in her hand. "What is this?" I asked, pointing to the bags. "That is your room, Thad," she said, taking a sip. "We cleared out the guest room. I need it for my shoe collection, and honestly, your old clothes smell like sawdust and sweat." I did not want them stinking up my new house. My clothes, my work boots, the few pictures of Beatrice I had kept out, all of it stuffed into garbage bags and thrown in the dirt. "So I am sleeping on the porch?" I asked, my voice flat. "Don't be silly," she laughed. "You are sleeping in the shed. You know, the one out back where you keep the lawnmower? It has a roof. It is dry. It is perfect for you." She leaned over the railing, her white coat gleaming under the porch lights. "Just for a few days, Thad. Until Monday. I got the call today. A bed opened up at Green Meadows. They are coming to collect you Monday morning, so you just have to camp out for the weekend. Think of it as an adventure, like Boy Scouts." She threw something at me. It flashed in the light and landed in the mud next to the trash bags. It was a sleeping bag, a cheap thin one. "There you go," she said. "Now grab your trash and get out of sight. I have friends coming over later to christen the house, and I do not want them seeing a hobo on my front lawn." I looked at the sleeping bag. I looked at the trash bags holding 60 years of my life. I looked at Andre. He was standing in the doorway behind her. He was holding the champagne bottle. He was looking at the bags, too. "Andre," I said. My voice was not loud, but it carried. "Is this how it ends, son? You are putting your father in a shed." Andre looked at Tiffany. She did not even turn around. She just held out her glass for a refill. He stepped forward. He poured the champagne. His hand was shaking so bad the bottle clinked against the glass. "It is just for the weekend, Dad," he mumbled, not looking at me. It is warm in the shed. And Green Meadows is... They say it is nice." He was lying. He knew it was a hellhole. He knew the shed was freezing. But he was too weak to fight. He had surrendered his spine along with his dignity. "Okay," I said. Tiffany blinked. She expected a fight. She expected me to beg. She wanted me to beg. She wanted to see the old man cry so she could feel powerful. "Okay," she repeated, suspicious. "That is it. Just okay." I bent down. I picked up the bags. They were heavy. Heavy with memories. Heavy with the weight of a life she could never understand. "I am a simple man, Tiffany," I said, swinging the bags over my shoulder. "I do not need a palace. I just need a place to rest my head." "Good," she sniffed. "Glad you are finally knowing your place. Now go. And Thad, if I catch you trying to sneak into the main house to use the bathroom, I will call the police and tell them there is an intruder. Use the woods." I turned around. I did not say goodbye. I walked down the driveway, my boots crunching on the gravel. I walked past the shed. I did not even slow down. I walked straight to my old Ford pickup truck parked by the gate. I threw the bags in the bed. I threw the sleeping bag in the ditch. I climbed into the cab. The engine started with a roar that sounded like a growl. I backed out of the driveway. As I turned the truck, I saw them one last time. Tiffany was dancing on the porch, spinning in her white coat, celebrating her victory. Andre was leaning against the doorframe, watching me leave, drinking straight from the bottle. He looked like a ghost haunting his own life. I drove. I did not go to the shed. I drove out of the subdivision, past the iron gates I had installed, past the sign that said private property. I drove for 40 minutes until the dark streets of the suburbs turned into the bright lights of downtown Chicago. I pulled up to the entrance of the Ritz-Carlton. The valet, a young man named James, who had parked my truck 3 days ago, ran over. He did not look at the dents in the fender. He did not look at the sawdust on my clothes. He opened the door. "Welcome back, Mr. Moore," he said. "Good to see you again, sir." I handed him a $100 bill. "Keep it close, James," I said. "I might need it early." I walked into the lobby. The marble floors here were real. The chandeliers were crystal, not plastic. The air smelled of money and silence. I went up to my suite. I threw the trash bags on the floor. I opened one up and pulled out my good suit. The one I had worn to the birthday dinner. I hung it up. Then I took a long, hot shower. I washed the dust of the construction site off my skin. I washed the memory of Tiffany's voice out of my ears. I ordered a whiskey, a 30-year-old single malt. I sat in the leather armchair by the window and I watched the city lights. I was not an old man sleeping in a shed. I was a general in his command bunker on the eve of the final battle. Back at the mansion, the party was dying down. I know this because I checked the audio feed one last time before bed. The music had stopped. Tiffany was in the bathroom. I could hear the water running. Andre was in the kitchen. I could hear him pacing, back and forth, back and forth. Then I heard him pick up his phone. He dialed a number. "Hey," he whispered, his voice thick with alcohol. "Yeah, it is me. Look, I need a few more days. The transfer is happening tomorrow. I swear, my dad, he is gone. We have the house. It is worth millions. Just tell the boss I am good for it. Please." Silence, then a click. The person on the other end had hung up. Andre groaned, a sound of pure terror. Tiffany walked into the kitchen. "Who were you talking to?" she asked sharply. "Nobody." Andre lied quickly. "Just checking the voicemail." She hummed. "It feels weird." "Andre," she said. Her voice was not triumphant anymore. It was small. "What does Andre ask?" "The house," she said. "It is quiet. Too quiet. And cold, even with the heat on. It feels empty." "It is a big house, Tiff," Andre said. "It will feel better when we get the furniture." "No," she said. "It is not that. It feels like someone is watching us." I took a sip of my whiskey. She was right. I was watching. The cameras were rolling. The trapdoor was oiled and ready. She felt the cold because there was no insulation in the walls of the master suite. I had told the crew to skip it. She felt the emptiness because the house had no soul. And she felt watched because deep down in the reptile part of her brain she knew she had made a mistake. She had kicked the wolf out of the cave, but she had forgotten that the wolf knows the way back in the dark. "Tomorrow is Friday, Andre," she whispered. "Everything changes tomorrow. We get the title, we get the money, and we get rid of him for good." "Yeah," Andre said, "for good." I turned off the feed. I finished my drink. I crawled into the soft, clean bed. Tomorrow, everything would change indeed. They thought they were taking it all. They were about to find out that you cannot take what has already been given away. And you cannot break a man who has already rebuilt himself from steel and stone. Friday was here, and the check was coming due. And we are back to the moment where it all began. The moment the fuse finally reached the powder keg. I stood in the driveway holding my sanding block, feeling the October wind bite at my exposed neck where the collar of my work overalls hung loose. The Mercedes G-Wagon was still ticking as the engine cooled its aggressive heat radiating into the chill morning air. Tiffany stood before the massive oak double doors, key in hand, trembling not with fear, but with the adrenaline of a conqueror about to claim her spoils. She did not know I had spent the night at the Ritz-Carlton. She did not know I had spent the morning with Goldstein finalizing the paperwork that would turn her victory lap into a death march. She only saw an old man in dirty clothes standing in the shadow of the magnificent structure she believed was her new estate. Andre stood behind her. He looked like a man who had not slept in 3 days because he hadn't. His eyes were darting around the property, looking for threats, looking for the creditors he knew were coming, looking for a way out of the trap he had helped build. He did not want to go inside. He sensed something was wrong. The house was too quiet. It did not hum with the low frequency of a lived-in home. It felt hollow. "Open it," old man Tiffany had screamed just moments ago, snatching the keys from my hand. I watched her jam the key into the lock. She twisted it violently. She expected resistance. She expected me to fight her for the threshold. But I just stepped back. I folded my arms across my chest. I leaned against a stack of rough-hewn timber and waited. The lock clicked. It was a heavy sound, a sound of finality. Tiffany pushed the doors. They swung inward on silent, heavy-duty hinges I had oiled myself just that morning. "Welcome home," I whispered to the wind. She stepped across the threshold, her heels clicking on the entryway slate. She threw her arms wide, ready to embrace her foyer, ready to scream in delight at the grand staircase she had envisioned, ready to mentally place her Italian furniture in the spaces I had created. "I am home!" she shouted, her voice echoing into the cavernous space. And then silence. Absolute, terrible silence. Andre stepped in behind her. He stopped. His bag dropped from his hand, hitting the floor with a dull thud. I walked up the steps slowly. I wiped the sawdust from my hands. I stood in the doorway, framing the scene like a director watching his final act. There was no grand staircase. There was no crystal chandelier. There were no interior walls separating a living room from a dining room or a kitchen from a den. The inside of the mansion was one single massive open space. It was a cathedral of raw industry. The floor was not covered in the purple vein marble she had ordered. That marble was sitting in crates in the corner, gathering dust. The floor was polished concrete, covered in a fine layer of sawdust. Running down the center of the room where she had imagined her long dining table for 20 guests were 2 rows of heavy industrial workbenches. Each one was equipped with a vise, a set of clamps, and a tool rack. Along the walls where she had pictured her art collection hanging were stations: a band saw, a drill press, a planer, a joiner. Industrial-grade machinery bolted to the floor, wired into the heavy conduit that ran exposed along the ceiling. The smell was not of lavender and expensive candles. It smelled of pine oil, lacquer, and hard work. Overhead, high in the rafters where she thought a master bedroom suite would look down on the great hall, there was nothing but a catwalk. A steel grate walkway meant for maintenance and supervision, not for sleeping. The gaboon ebony paneling she had screamed for, the wood that cost more than a starter home, was there. But it was not on the walls. It was stacked neatly on pallet racks labeled material storage. It was raw inventory. Tiffany stood in the center of the room. She turned in a slow circle. Her brain was trying to reject what her eyes were seeing. She was looking for the walls. She was looking for the rooms. She was looking for the luxury. But all she saw was a factory, a workshop, a school. "Where is it?" she whispered. Her voice trembled. It bounced off the metal ductwork. She spun around to face me. Her eyes were wide, manic. "Where is the living room, Thad? Where is the kitchen? Where are the bedrooms?" I stepped inside. The sound of my boots on the concrete was loud and authoritative. "There are no bedrooms, Tiffany," I said calmly. "What do you mean there are no bedrooms?" she shrieked. "It is a 10,000 square foot house. It has to have bedrooms. It is a 10,000 square foot structure," I corrected. "It is not a house. I never said it was a house." "You assumed it was a house." I walked over to one of the workbenches. I ran my hand along the smooth maple top. It was good, solid work. "You see," I continued while she hyperventilated in the center of the room. "When you demanded I build this place, you never looked at the blueprints. You never asked about the zoning. You just saw the size. You saw the exterior. You saw a mansion, because that is what you wanted to see." Andre walked over to a wall where a row of safety goggles hung on hooks. He touched them like they were alien artifacts. "Dad," he said, his voice hollow. "What is this place?" I looked at him. I looked at the son who had tried to sell me out for a gambling debt. "It is a workshop, Andre," I said. "A training center," Tiffany finally snapped. The shock wore off, and the rage took over. She ran at me. She looked like she wanted to claw my eyes out. "You senile old bat," she screamed. "You ruined it. You gutted it. Where is my marble? Where is my ebony? I paid for it, or at least I signed for it. Where is my palace?" "It is all right here, Tiffany," I said, pointing to the stacks of crates in the corner. "You ordered materials. You did not order labor. You fired me, remember? You told me I was the security guard. Well, the security guard does not install marble floors. The security guard does not frame bedrooms. The security guard just watches the stuff." She looked at the crates. Hundreds of thousands of dollars of stone sitting useless in wooden boxes. "Fix it!" she yelled. "Fix it right now. Call the contractors. Build the walls. I want my bedroom upstairs. I want my bathroom. I want this junk out of here." She kicked a table saw. She instantly regretted it as her toe collided with cast iron. She howled in pain and hopped on one foot. "I cannot fix it, Tiffany," I said, "and neither can you." "Because of the zoning." "Zoning," she spat, clutching her foot. "I do not care about zoning. We own the land. We can build whatever we want." I shook my head slowly. "No, you don't," I said. And that is when it happened. The moment I had been waiting for. The moment reality came crashing down like a falling beam. Tiffany looked around the vast empty space. She looked at the industrial lights humming overhead. She looked at the sawdust on her expensive boots. She looked at the husband who was uselessly holding a pair of safety goggles. And she realized that there was no place to sleep. There was no place to shower. There was no place to hide. She had moved out of her apartment. She had burned her bridges. And she had arrived at her destination only to find it was a mirage. She made a sound like a wounded animal. A low, guttural moan. "No," she whispered. "No, no, no." Her legs gave out. She did not faint. She just lost the will to stand. She dropped to her knees on the hard, cold concrete. Her white coat billowed around her, settling into the sawdust. She looked up at me. Tears were streaming down her face, ruining her perfect makeup. "What is this, Thad?" she sobbed. "What the hell is this?" I walked over to the wall near the entrance. There was a large electrical panel there. Next to it was a switch. I flipped the switch. A hum filled the room. High above us, a motorized screen lowered from the ceiling, and on the back wall, a massive backlit sign flickered to life. I had installed it 2 days ago, covering it with a tarp until this exact moment. The sign buzzed and glowed neon blue and bright white. It illuminated the dark corners of the workshop. It cast a harsh, unforgiving light on Tiffany kneeling on the floor. She read the words. Andre read the words, and for the first time in their lives they understood exactly who they were dealing with. The sign did not say more residence. It did not say private estate. It read in bold capital letters, Thaddeus Moore Trade School for At-Risk Youth, established 2024. I looked down at her. "It is a school, Tiffany," I said, my voice echoing in the silence. "It is a place where young men and women from this neighborhood are going to learn how to build things with their hands. They are going to learn carpentry, plumbing, electrical work. They are going to learn how to make an honest living, something neither of you ever bothered to do." She stared at the sign. Her mouth opened and closed. "A school," she whispered. "You built a school." I nodded. "I have been building it for 2 years. The permits are public record. If you had spent 5 minutes looking at City Hall filings instead of shopping for shoes, you would have known. This land is zoned educational. It cannot be used as a private residence. It is illegal to sleep here. It is illegal to live here." I leaned in close. "So technically, Tiffany, you are trespassing." She screamed. It was a scream of pure frustration, of a plan shattering into a million pieces. She pounded her fists on the concrete floor, sending clouds of sawdust into the air. "We own the deed," she shrieked. "We own the land. We will evict the school. We will tear it down. We will rezone it. We will take it all." I reached into my back pocket. I pulled out my phone. I checked the time. It was 10:30 in the morning on a Friday. I smiled. "I do not think you will be evicting anyone," I said. "Why not?" Andre asked, his voice trembling. "We signed the papers, Dad. The transfer, it went through this morning." I looked at the heavy double doors. I heard the sound of another car approaching, a black sedan, official looking. Because I said, turning to face the entrance, "You did not read the fine print of what you signed, Andre. And you certainly did not check who the real owner was." The doors opened again, and this time it was not a greedy relative storming in. It was Saul Goldstein, and he was not alone. Behind him walked 2 men in suits who looked like they chewed glass for fun, and behind them were 2 uniformed police officers. Tiffany stopped screaming. She looked at the police. She looked at me. "What did you do, old man?" she whispered. "I did not do anything I said. I just opened the door." I walked over to the workbench. I picked up my sanding block. "Class is in session," I said, "and today's lesson is about ownership." Saul stepped forward, holding a briefcase that looked like it contained a bomb. "Mrs. Moore," Mr. Moore, Saul said, his voice booming in the acoustic space, "I suggest you get off the floor. We have a lot to discuss, and most of it involves the words fraud, embezzlement, and prison." Tiffany tried to stand up, but she slipped on the sawdust. She fell back down. She stayed there on her knees, looking up at the sign that bore my name. The sign that was the only thing in this building that was truly hers, a lesson she would never forget. Saul Goldstein stood there like a statue carved out of granite and expensive tailoring. The police officers behind him were silent, their hands resting near their belts, their eyes scanning the room with the bored professionalism of men who have seen every kind of domestic dispute Chicago has to offer. But this was not a domestic dispute. This was a demolition, and I was holding the detonator. Tiffany was still on her knees in the sawdust. Her white coat was ruined. Her mascara was running down her cheeks in black rivers. She looked up at Saul, then at the police, and finally at me. Her eyes were wild, darting around the cavernous, empty room as if she could will walls and furniture into existence by sheer force of desperation. "What is happening?" she whispered. Her voice was thin, like a wire stretched to the breaking point. "Why are the police here? Thad, tell them. Tell them this is my house. Tell them to leave." I did not answer her immediately. I walked past her. I walked with the slow, heavy gait of a man who has carried lumber on his shoulders for 50 years. My boots echoed on the concrete floor. Thud, 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 a rhythm of judgment. I walked to the far wall near the heavy steel conduit that ran the main power lines for the machinery. There was a large gray industrial breaker panel there. Next to it was a red switch covered by a safety cage. I lifted the cage. I rested my finger on the switch. "You wanted to see the light, Tiffany," I said, my voice bouncing off the metal rafters. "You wanted to see what you bought. You wanted to see your legacy." I flipped the switch. Clack! A deep hum vibrated through the floorboards. It was the sound of high-voltage transformers kicking in. Overhead, the rows of industrial LED bay lights flickered and then blazed to life, flooding the room with a stark white illumination that left no shadow to hide in. It was brighter than any operating room. It exposed every grain of sawdust, every scuff on the concrete, and every line of terror on Andre's face. But the real show was on the back wall. Behind the area where Tiffany had imagined her grand fireplace, a motorized canvas tarp began to roll up. Gears ground together. The heavy fabric lifted slowly, inch by inch, revealing what was hidden beneath. It was a sign, a massive backlit sign made of frosted glass and brushed steel. It was beautiful. It was permanent. It was the only finished thing in the entire building. The lights inside the sign hummed to life. Blue and white neon cut through the dusty air. Thaddeus Moore Trade School for At-Risk Youth. Established 2024. Building futures, one nail at a time. I turned around to face them. I stood framed by the sign, my name glowing in 3-foot-tall letters behind me. "This is not a house, Tiffany," I said. My voice was calm, cold, and absolute. "This is a school." Tiffany stared at the sign. She blinked once, twice, as if trying to clear a hallucination. She read the words. Her lips moved, forming the syllables, but no sound came out. A school, she choked out. "Yes," I said. "A trade school. A place where kids from the South Side, kids who grew up with nothing, kids like I used to be, can come and learn a skill. Carpentry, welding, plumbing, HVAC. A place where they can learn to build a life with their hands instead of trying to steal one with lies." I walked over to one of the workbenches. I ran my hand over the vice grip bolted to the edge. "Did you never wonder why the outlets are 220 volts, Andre?" I asked my son. "Did you never wonder why there is a ventilation system designed to suck up sawdust? Did you never wonder why there are no interior walls?" Andre looked at the ceiling. He looked at the heavy ductwork. He looked at the sign. His face went the color of old ash. I thought it was modern," he whispered. "I thought it was an open concept loft," Tiffany said. Tiffany said what she wanted to believe, I interrupted. Tiffany saw a big wooden building and her greed filled in the blanks. She saw a mansion because she thinks she deserves a mansion. She didn't see the reality because she has never looked at a blueprint in her life. I walked closer to them. I loomed over Tiffany, who was still kneeling frozen in shock. "And here is the best part," I said, leaning down. "The part that really proves how blind you both are." I reached into the back pocket of my overalls and pulled out a folded piece of paper. It was orange. Bright neon orange. It was weather-beaten and faded from the sun. I snapped it open and held it in front of her face. "This is the building permit, Tiffany." She recoiled as if I were holding a snake. "It has been stapled to the front gate for 6 months," I said. "Right next to the lock you cut. Right next to the sign you ignored. Every time you drove your G-Wagon onto this lot, you drove past this piece of paper." I pointed to the line at the top. "Permit type commercial/educational. Project description vocational training center. Applicant. The Beatrice Moore Memorial Trust. You never read it, did you?" I asked. "You were so busy picking out curtains and marble for a house that didn't exist that you never stopped to read the one piece of paper that told you exactly what this was." Tiffany grabbed the paper. She stared at it. Her hands were shaking so hard the paper rattled. No, she gasped. No. This is a trick. You changed it. You changed the permit. I did not change anything I said taking the paper back. You just didn't care. You saw what you wanted to take and you tried to take it. But you cannot live in a school, Tiffany. It is a violation of zoning laws. It is a violation of the fire code. And it is a violation of common decency. I stood up straight. I looked at the police officers. I looked at Saul. Officer, I said. These people are trespassing on private commercial property. This is a construction site for a registered non-profit educational facility. They have broken locks. They have moved in personal belongings, and they are refusing to leave. One of the officers stepped forward. He was a big man with a kind face, but eyes that didn't miss a thing. He looked at the sign. He looked at the workbenches. He looked at Tiffany on the floor. Ma'am, the officer said, his voice heavy with authority. You need to stand up. You cannot stay here. This is not a residence. Tiffany scrambled to her feet. She slipped on the sawdust and grabbed Andre's arm to steady herself. Her nails dug into his suit jacket. We own this, she screamed, pointing at me. We own the land, he signed it over. We have the deed. It doesn't matter if it's a school or a circus. We own the dirt it sits on. We will tear it down. We will bulldoze this dump and build a real house. She looked at Saul. You lawyer. Tell them we have the papers. We signed them 3 days ago. Tiana Future Ventures owns this property. Saul cleared his throat. He walked forward, stepping carefully over a pile of wood shavings. He placed his briefcase on one of the student workbenches. He clicked the latches open. The sound was sharp and precise. Mrs. Moore Saul said, his voice calm and patronizing. Regarding the document you coerced my client into signing on Tuesday, the transfer of deed. Yes, Tiffany shouted. The transfer. It is legal. We filed it. You did file it. Saul agreed, or rather your attorney. Mr. Sterling attempted to file it. However, he pulled a document from his case. It was stamped with a large red seal. There are 2 significant problems with your plan to bulldoze this school. First, Saul said, holding up a finger. As Thaddeus mentioned, the land is not owned by him personally. It is owned by the Beatrice Moore Memorial Trust. Thaddeus is merely the trustee. He does not have the legal authority to transfer the title to a private entity for 0 consideration. The signature on your document, even if it were valid, represents an illegal act. It is void ab initio, meaning from the beginning. It is worth less than the paper it is printed on. Tiffany's mouth fell open. She looked at Andre. You said he owned it? She screeched at him. You said it was his. I thought it was. Andre stammered. He built it. It's his land, Saul continued, ignoring their domestic squabble, and second, Saul said, holding up a second finger. Even if the transfer were valid, which it is not, you would not want this land, Mrs. Moore. Why not? Tiffany whispered. Her aggression was fading, replaced by a dawning horror. Because Saul said, smiling a thin, sharp smile. The trust carries a liability. Liability, Andre asked. This school, Saul explained, gesturing around the room. It is a non-profit. But the land itself, the commercial zone, carries a special tax assessment and a municipal bond obligation for the infrastructure improvements. Thaddeus has been paying it out of the commercial rents from the other properties. Saul paused for effect. The monthly debt service for this property is $50,000, plus insurance, plus maintenance. If you take the title, if you somehow manage to steal this land, you also steal the debt. You become personally liable for $60,000 a month in operating costs. Saul looked at Andre. Do you have $60,000 a month, Mr. Moore? Considering your bank accounts are currently empty. Andre turned the color of the concrete floor. He swayed on his feet. 60,000, he wheezed. Tiffany looked at the sign. She looked at the workbenches. She looked at the expensive marble she had ordered, which was now sitting in a building she couldn't own on land she couldn't afford, surrounded by debt she couldn't pay. The realization hit her like a physical blow. The mansion was not an asset, it was an anchor, and she had chained herself to it. But the materials, she cried, grasping at straws, the marble, the ebony, I ordered them, I signed for them. Yes, I said, stepping back into the conversation. You did, or rather you tried to make me sign for them. But if you recall, I signed as a technical advisor. Not the owner. I pointed to the crates. Those materials were ordered by T&A Future Ventures. They were delivered to a site you do not own, which means, Tiffany, that you just donated $500,000 worth of luxury materials to my nonprofit school. I smiled. A cold, hard smile. Thank you for the donation. The students will have the fanciest bathroom floors in Chicago. We will put a little plaque up in the latrine, donated by Tiffany Moore. Tiffany stared at me. Her eyes rolled back in her head. Her knees buckled. This time she did not catch herself. She hit the floor hard. She collapsed into a heap of white faux fur in despair. Andre did not help her. He stood there frozen, staring at the neon sign that buzzed overhead. Building Futures. He read aloud, his voice cracking. He looked at me. You built a school, Dad, instead of a house for us? I looked at him. I saw the weakness. I saw the greed. I built a future for kids who actually want to work. Andre, I said. I built a legacy. You wanted a handout. I turned to the police officer. Officer, I said, please remove these trespassers from the school grounds. Class starts on Monday, and I need to sweep up the trash. The officer nodded. He stepped toward Tiffany, who was sobbing into the sawdust. Ma'am, let's go, the officer said, reaching for her arm. But the nightmare wasn't over for them yet, because as the officer pulled Tiffany to her feet, another car pulled into the driveway. A black SUV with tinted windows, and the men who stepped out of it were not police. They were not lawyers. They were the people Andre owed money to. And they looked very, very impatient. I looked at Saul. Saul looked at me. Class is dismissed, I said, but the final exam is just beginning. Tiffany did not go quietly. As the officer gripped her arm, she shook him off with a violent jerk. She reached into her handbag, her fingers clawing past lipstick and credit cards until she found what she was looking for. The crumpled, sweat-stained document I had signed 3 days ago in my kitchen. She held it up like a talisman, waving it in the face of the police, in the face of Saul, in the face of God himself. I have the signature, she screamed, her voice cracking. Look at it. He signed it. T. D. Moore. It's right here. He transferred the property to us. To T and a Future Ventures. We own the liability. We own the asset. We own everything. She thrust the paper at Saul. Read it, you shyster. It says transfer of all rights and obligations. All of them. Saul didn't flinch. He didn't even blink. He just adjusted his tie and smiled, that thin, predatory smile that has made grown men cry in depositions. He took the paper from her shaking hand. He held it up to the harsh industrial light of the workshop. Ah, yes, Saul said, his voice smooth as silk. The document. The one my client signed under extreme duress with a signature that doesn't even match his legal name. But let's set that aside for a moment, shall we? Let's assume, for the sake of argument, that this document is valid. He looked at Tiffany. He looked at Andre, who was leaning against a workbench, looking like he wanted to dissolve into the floor. You are correct, Mrs. Moore, Saul said. This document does indeed transfer all rights and obligations of the property located at this address to T&A Future Ventures, LLC. It is very specific language. Standard boilerplate, really. Tiffany sneered. See, I told you we own it. So get out. Get out of my school. Get out of my mansion. However, Saul continued, raising his voice slightly to cut through her hysteria. You seem to have focused entirely on the word rights. You completely ignored the word obligations. He handed the paper back to her. She snatched it. What are you talking about? She demanded. Thaddeus, Saul said, turning to me. Would you like to explain the financial structure of the Beatrice Moore Memorial Trust to your daughter-in-law, specifically the debt restructuring we did last year? I stepped forward. I looked at the sign glowing above us. Building Futures. It is simple. Tiffany, I said. This land, the commercial zone, it is expensive to maintain. The property taxes alone are $20,000 a month because of the new assessment. Then there is the insurance, the municipal bonds for the road work, the utility surcharges for industrial power. I paused. I let the numbers sink in. The trust, I continued, was set up to separate the ownership from the liability. The trust owns the land. It holds the deed. It is the beneficiary of the school's work. But the operating costs, the debts, Those are assigned to a separate entity, the entity that manages the property. Tiffany's eyes narrowed. So, we manage it now. We own the managing entity. Correct, Saul interjected. By forcing Thaddeus to sign that transfer document, the one you were so eager to file, you did not transfer the ownership of the land. You couldn't. The land belongs to the trust. What you transferred, what you explicitly demanded to take over, was the role of the guarantor. Saul pulled another document from his briefcase, a spreadsheet. He held it up. This property generates zero income, Saul said. It is a school, a nonprofit, but it consumes cash, lots of it, specifically $52,000 a month in fixed operating costs and debt service. He pointed a finger at Tiffany. When you filed that transfer, Mrs. Moore, you legally agreed to assume full responsibility for those costs. You didn't sign a deed. You signed a debt assumption agreement. You didn't buy a house. You bought a bill. Tiffany stared at him. The paper in her hand suddenly looked heavy. A bill, she whispered. A monthly bill, Saul corrected, of $52,000, payable to the city, the utility company, and the bondholders. And since the trust is irrevocable, you cannot sell the land to pay the debt. You cannot mortgage it. You cannot even rent it out because the zoning restricts it to educational use. Saul leaned in close. You have the right to pay the bills, Tiffany, and the obligation to keep the lights on, but you have zero rights to the equity. You just signed yourself into a lifetime of paying for a school you aren't allowed to enter. The color drained from Tiffany's face so fast I thought she was going to faint again. She looked at the paper. She looked at the signature she had fought so hard to get. No, she gasped. No, that's not fair. We wanted the asset. We wanted the value. You wanted to steal, I said, my voice hard. You wanted to take what wasn't yours, and you were so greedy, so blind that you grabbed the hot coal instead of the diamond. Andre made a sound, a dry, choking laugh. $50,000 a month, he muttered. Plus the marble, plus the ebony, plus my debt. He looked at Tiffany. His eyes were dead. We are dead, Tiff, he said. We are buried. Tiffany shook her head violently. No, we can cancel it. We can unsign it. We'll say he was incompetent. We'll say he tricked us. Oh, you can certainly try, Saul said cheerfully. But remember, you are the ones who insisted he was competent enough to sign. You are the ones who bribed a doctor to say he was fine. If you go to court now and say he tricked you, well, you are admitting to fraud and coercion and elder abuse. Saul closed his briefcase. Click, click. It's a checkmate, Mrs. Moore. You can pay the bills for the rest of your life, or you can go to prison. Those are your options. Tiffany looked at the paper. She looked at me. For the first time, I saw real fear in her eyes. Not the fear of losing money, the fear of a trap closing around her leg. You planned this, she hissed at me. You old bastard. You planned this whole thing. I planned to build a school, I said. You planned to steal it. I just let you walk through the door you kicked open. I pointed to the exit. Now get out of my school. I have a class to teach on Monday, and I don't want your bad luck rubbing off on the students. Tiffany crumpled the paper in her hand. She threw it at me. It bounced off my chest and landed in the sawdust. I hate you, she screamed. I hate you. I hope you die in this sawdust. She turned to run. She grabbed Andre's hand. Come on. We have to go. We have to find a lawyer. A real lawyer. But Andre didn't move. He was staring past me, past Saul, past the police officers. He was staring at the open doorway, because the black SUV I had seen earlier had finally pulled up. It parked right behind the G-Wagon, blocking it in. Two men stepped out. They were wearing expensive suits, but they didn't look like lawyers. They looked like the kind of men who solve problems with tire irons. They walked into the workshop. They didn't look at the sign. They didn't look at the marble. They looked straight at Andre. Mr. Moore, one of them said. His voice was calm, polite, and terrifying. We've been looking for you. Your payment was due at noon. It is now 12:15. Andre started to shake. He let go of Tiffany's hand. He stepped back. I don't have it, he whispered. The land. It's not... The man nodded. He looked at Tiffany. He looked at the G-Wagon outside. We heard the man said, we heard about the transfer. We heard about the marble. We figured you had liquidity. He took a step forward. But if you don't have the money, then we have a problem. A very personal problem. Tiffany screamed. I don't know him. I don't know anything about his debts. Leave me alone." She tried to run past them. She tried to abandon her husband to the wolves she had helped feed, but the second man stepped in front of her. He blocked her path. "Mrs. Moore," he said, "you signed the joint accounts. You signed the LLC papers. You are a partner. In everything." He smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. "We take collateral, Mrs. Moore. Cars, jewelry, furs." He looked at her white coat. "That's a nice coat." Tiffany backed away. She looked at me. She looked at Saul. She looked at the police. "Help me!" she screamed. "Police! They're threatening me!" The officer looked at the men in suits. He looked at Tiffany. "Ma'am," the officer said, checking his watch, "this looks like a civil dispute regarding unpaid debts. Unless a crime is committed in my presence, I can't interfere with debt collection." He turned his back. I watched as the reality of her life finally caught up with her. She had signed a paper that gave her nothing but debt. She had married a man who owed millions to the mob. She had alienated the only person who could have saved her. And now she was standing in a pile of sawdust, holding a bill for $50,000 a month, while two loan sharks eyed her diamond earrings. "We're going to take it all," she had said to me 3 days ago. She was right. They were going to take it all, just not from me. I picked up my sanding block. I went back to work. The sound of sandpaper on wood filled the room, drowning out her sobs. It was the sound of progress, the sound of a future being built one grain at a time, and I didn't miss a beat. The sound of the police siren was loud and sharp, a mechanical scream that announced the arrival of the law. But underneath that wail, there was another sound, a lower, deeper rumble that vibrated through the soles of my work boots. It was the sound of a heavy engine, a massive V8 idling with the kind of menace that does not need to shout to be heard. I looked out the open double doors of my school. A black SUV with tinted windows as dark as oil had pulled up right onto the gravel boxing in Tiffany's white Mercedes. It sat there like a hearse waiting for a passenger. The police cruiser was parked behind it, its blue lights flashing against the gray Chicago sky, but the officers seemed hesitant. They were looking at the SUV with the wary recognition of men who know that there are two kinds of authority in this city. There is the badge, and then there is the bankroll. And the men inside that black truck represented a bankroll that did not file tax returns. The doors of the SUV opened. 2 men stepped out. They were not wearing the cheap suits of debt collectors. They were wearing tailored wool coats and shoes that cost more than a table saw. They moved with a synchronized, terrifying calm. They did not look at the police. They did not look at the construction debris. They looked straight into the open mouth of the workshop. They walked inside. The sawdust muffled their footsteps, but their presence filled the room like a sudden drop in air pressure. The police officer who had been about to escort Tiffany out took a step back, his hand hovering near his belt but not drawing his weapon. He knew better. This was a civil matter turning into a street matter, and smart cops let the street sort itself out before they start writing reports. One of the men, the taller one with a scar running through his left eyebrow, stopped in the center of the room. He looked at the neon sign glowing on the wall. Thaddeus Moore Trade School. He read it slowly, his lips barely moving. Then he looked at the piles of expensive marble crates. Finally, his eyes landed on Andre. Andre was pressed against a workbench, his face the color of old newspaper. He was shaking so hard the tools hanging on the rack behind him were rattling. "Mr. Moore," the scarred man said. His voice was soft, polite, and absolutely lethal. "We have a contract. The deadline was noon. It is now 12:20. We are here for the asset." He gestured around the room with a gloved hand. "Your collateral," he said. "This mansion. We are here to take possession." Andre opened his mouth, but no sound came out. He looked like a fish drowning in air. Tiffany scrambled to her feet. She saw the men. She saw the expensive suits. She saw the danger. And in her twisted mind, she saw a lifeline. "Yes," she shouted, pointing a trembling finger at me. "Yes, take it. Take the house. We signed it over. It is his fault. The old man is trying to steal it back, but we have the papers. Take the house and let us go." She thought she could trade the building for her freedom. She thought she could pay off a blood debt with a building she did not own. The scarred man looked at Tiffany. He looked at her ruined coat and her desperate eyes. He did not smile. "We do not want the old man, Mrs. Moore," he said. "We want the deed. Andre told us he secured the title transfer this morning. We are here to collect the keys and the deed. That settles the $2 million. $2 million. Tiffany gasped. She looked at Andre. $2 million, she whispered. "You told me it was 200,000. Andre shrank into himself. He did not look at her. I stepped forward. I wiped my hands on my overalls. I stood between the mobsters and my son, not to save him but to tell the truth. "Gentlemen," I said. My voice was steady. "I am Thaddeus Moore. This is my building." The scarred man looked at me. He assessed me. He saw the work boots. He saw the calloused hands. He saw a man who was not afraid. "Mr. Moore," he said with a nod of respect, "we have no quarrel with you. Your son pledged this property as collateral for a high-risk investment loan. He claimed ownership. If he does not own it, we have a problem." "He does not own it," Saul Goldstein said, stepping up beside me. Saul held his briefcase like a shield. He pulled out the trust documents. He pulled out the zoning permits. "This property is owned by an irrevocable charitable trust," Saul stated, his lawyer voice cutting through the tension. "It is zoned for educational use only. It cannot be sold. It cannot be lined. It cannot be used as collateral for personal gambling debts. Furthermore, any attempt to seize this property would trigger an immediate federal investigation into the assets of the seizing party, as this is a federally recognized nonprofit entity." Saul handed the documents to the scarred man. "It is a school, gentleman," Saul said. "You cannot foreclose on a charity. It is bad for business, and the IRS watches charities very closely." The scarred man read the papers. He read them quickly, his eyes scanning the legal jargon. He stopped at the zoning clause. He stopped at the federal tax ID number. He closed the folder. He handed it back to Saul. He turned to Andre. The politeness was gone from his face. It was replaced by a cold, dead stare that promised pain. "You lied to us, Andre," the man said. Andre whimpered. No, I didn't know. I thought my dad signed." "You sold us air," the man interrupted. "You pledged an asset you did not have. You wasted our time, and you insulted our intelligence." The man looked around the room. He looked at the marble. He looked at the ebony wood. "We cannot take the house," the man said. "It is a liability. We cannot sell a school." He turned back to Andre. "So we have to take the borrower." The two men moved. It was a blur of motion. They crossed the distance between the door and the workbench in 2 strides. They grabbed Andre by the arms. Andre screamed. It was a high, thin sound of pure terror. "Dad, help me. Dad." I stood there. I watched the men drag my son away from the safety of the workbench. I watched his expensive Italian shoes skid across the sawdust-covered floor. I did not move. I did not raise a hand. "You made your bet, son," I whispered. "Now you have to cover it." Andre struggled. He kicked. He looked at the police officer. "Officer, help. They are kidnapping me." The officer took a step forward, his hand on his baton. "Hey!" the officer shouted. "You cannot just take him." The scarred man stopped. He looked at the officer. He smiled. "We are just going for a ride, officer," the man said. "Mr. Moore here needs to discuss a restructuring of his payment plan. He is coming voluntarily. Aren't you, Andre?" The man squeezed Andre's arm. I could hear the fabric of the suit jacket tearing. I could almost hear the bone creaking underneath. Andre looked at the man's eyes. He saw his future in them. He saw that if he fought here in front of the police, it would only be worse later. He saw that there was no escape. "Yes," Andre choked out, I am going voluntarily. We are just talking." The officer hesitated. He knew it was a lie. But he also knew he could not arrest someone for getting into a car with his creditors if the victim said it was consensual. And he knew that intervening in a mob debt collection usually ended with a lot of paperwork and no convictions. The officer stepped back. "Keep it civil," he warned. The men dragged Andre toward the door. Andre looked at me one last time. His eyes were pleading. He wanted me to write a check. He wanted me to sell the school. He wanted me to fix it like I had fixed his bike, like I had fixed his grades, like I had fixed his first car wreck. But I was out of fix-it tape. Then Andre looked at Tiffany. "Tiffany," he screamed. "Call your father. Get the money. Help me." Tiffany was standing near the door, pressing herself against the frame as if trying to merge with the wood. She watched her husband being dragged past her. She saw the fear in his eyes. She saw the men who held him. And she made a calculation. A cold, hard calculation. If she helped him, the debt became hers. If she stood by him, she was the wife of a man who owed $2 million to the mob. If she acknowledged him, she was part of the problem. She looked at the scarred man. She looked at Andre. "I do not know him," she said. Her voice was clear, loud. Andre froze. The men stopped dragging him for a second, surprised by the sheer coldness of it. "What?" Andre whispered. "Tiff, I do not know this man." Tiffany repeated, her voice rising in hysteria. "I am filing for annulment. He lied to me. He committed fraud. I am not involved. I am not his partner. I am a victim." She looked at the scarred man, her eyes wide and pleading. "He stole from me too. He forged my signature. I have nothing to do with his debts. Take him. Do whatever you want. Just leave me alone." Andre stared at her. The woman he had betrayed his father for. The woman he had tried to steal a legacy for. The woman he had worshipped. She was throwing him to the wolves to save her own fur coat. The scarred man laughed. It was a dry, dark sound. "Loyalty," he said. "It is a rare commodity these days." He looked at Tiffany with pure contempt. "Do not worry, lady," he said. "We know who signed the notes. We know who spent the money. We will be back for you. But first we deal with him." They dragged Andre out the door. "No," Andre screamed as they hauled him toward the black SUV. "Dad, Tiffany. Please." They threw him into the back seat. The door slammed shut. The engine roared. The SUV peeled out of the driveway, kicking up gravel and dust, disappearing down the street. Tiffany stood in the doorway watching them go. She was shaking. She was alone. Her husband was gone. Her mansion was a school. Her victory was a ruin. She turned to face me. Her face was a mask of shock. He is gone," she whispered. "Yes," I said. "He is gone. And he is not coming back for a long time." I walked over to her. I stood in the doorway, blocking her path back into my school. "And neither are you, Tiffany," I said. She looked at me. She tried to summon some of her old arrogance, some of her old fire. "You let them take him," she hissed. "You let them take your own son." "I let him pay his debts," I said. "Something you are about to learn how to do." I pointed to the police officer who was now walking toward us with a pair of handcuffs on his belt. "Because while Andre is dealing with his creditors, I said you have a date with the state of Illinois." What she gasped. "Elder abuse," I listed, counting on my fingers. "Fraud, embezzlement, attempted grand larceny, and trespassing." Saul stepped forward. "And let's not forget," Saul added cheerfully, "the $50,000 in damages to the school property caused by your unauthorized modifications." The officer stepped up to Tiffany. "Ms. Moore," the officer said. "It's Ms. Dubois," she shrieked, reverting to her maiden name in a desperate attempt to distance herself from the wreckage. "I am not a Moore. That is the first true thing you have said all day," I said. The officer took her arm. He spun her around. He clicked the handcuffs onto her wrists. The sound was distinct. Metal on metal. "You have the right to remain silent," the officer recited. Tiffany started screaming. She screamed threats. She screamed curses. She screamed that she would sue us all. She screamed that she was a victim. I watched them lead her to the police car. She struggled, her heels slipping in the mud, her white coat stained brown. She looked small. She looked pathetic. She looked like exactly what she was, a thief who got caught with her hand in the cookie jar, only to realize the jar was full of scorpions. I stood in the doorway of my school. The silence returned to the room. The dust motes danced in the light of the neon sign. My son was in the hands of the mob. My daughter-in-law was in the hands of the police. My bank account was empty, but my school was standing. My legacy was safe. And for the first time in 3 months, the air in my lungs felt clean. I turned to Saul. "Do you have the list of students for Monday?" I asked. Saul smiled. He pulled a file from his briefcase. 20 students, Thad, fully enrolled, waiting for their teacher. I nodded. I looked at the workbenches. I looked at the tools. "Then let's get this place cleaned up," I said. "We have work to do." I grabbed a broom. I started sweeping the sawdust. The rhythm of the bristles on the concrete was the only music I needed. It was the sound of a fresh start. The black SUV disappeared around the corner, taking my son to a fate he had purchased with lies and borrowed money. The dust from the gravel road hung in the air like a dirty fog. Silence returned to the workshop, but it was a heavy, suffocating silence. Tiffany stood near the doorway. Her chest was heaving. Her eyes were wide and unfocused. She stared at the empty space where her husband had been standing just moments ago. For a second, I thought she might cry for him. I thought maybe somewhere deep down under the layers of makeup and greed, there was a spark of humanity that actually cared about the man she had married. I was wrong. She turned to the police officer. Her face changed instantly. The shock vanished, replaced by a desperate, calculated mask of victimhood. She smoothed her ruined white coat. She wiped the mascara from her cheeks with the back of her hand. "Officer," she said, her voice trembling with a performance that would have won an award on daytime television. "You have to help me. You saw that right. Those men just kidnapped my husband. And do you know why? Because he is a criminal." I watched her. I leaned against my workbench, crossing my arms. I wanted to see how low she would go. I wanted to see the bottom of the well. She took a step toward the officer, her hands clasped in supplication. I did not know she sobbed. I had no idea he was involved with people like that. "Andre, he lied to me. He lied to everyone. He told me he was a successful investor. He told me the money was his. But he stole it. He stole my identity, officer." She pointed a shaking finger at the empty doorway. "Those loans, the ones those men were talking about. Andre forged my signature. He used my social security number without my consent. I am a victim here. I am an innocent woman who has been defrauded by a gambling addict." The police officer looked at her. He kept his face neutral, but I saw the flicker of disgust in his eyes. He had been a cop in Chicago for 20 years. He knew a rat when he saw one. "Ma'am," the officer said, his voice flat, "you just told those men that you signed the joint accounts. You stood right there and said you were partners." "I was scared," she shrieked. "I was terrified. They were threatening me. I said whatever I had to say to survive. But the truth is, I am innocent. Andre did everything. He tricked his father. He tricked me. He is the villain here. I just want to go home. I need to call my lawyer and report this identity theft." She looked at me. Her eyes were cold, dead stones. "Thad, tell him," she demanded. "Tell him Andre was the one pushing for the deed transfer. Tell him I was just a supportive wife who got caught in the middle." I looked at her. I thought about the recordings. I thought about her voice in the kitchen plotting to send me to a state asylum. I thought about her laughing as she planned to drug me. "I have nothing to say to you, Tiffany," I said quietly. She sneered at me. Then she turned back to the officer. "I am leaving," she announced. "I am going to the station to file a report against my husband. I am taking my car." She turned and ran. She did not walk. She sprinted toward the white Mercedes G-Wagon parked in the mud. It was her escape pod, her last symbol of status. She thought if she could just get behind the wheel, if she could just lock the doors, she would be safe. She would be powerful again. She fumbled with her keys, dropping them once in the dirt, snatching them up with frantic claws. She unlocked the door. She threw herself into the driver's seat. She slammed the door shut and locked it. I watched her through the windshield. I saw her take a deep breath. I saw her adjust the rearview mirror to check her makeup. Even in her panic, vanity was her co-pilot. She pushed the start button. Click. Silence. She pushed it again. Harder. Click. Nothing happened. The massive engine did not roar to life. The dashboard lights did not flicker. The beast was dead. She started hitting the steering wheel. She screamed something I could not hear through the soundproof glass. She pushed the button again and again, her face twisting into a mask of pure rage. I walked slowly out of the workshop. Saul followed me. The police officer walked behind us, his hand resting on his handcuffs. I walked up to the driver's side window. Tiffany was sobbing now, pounding on the glass, screaming at the car as if she could bully it into starting. I tapped on the glass with my knuckle. Rap. 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 She froze. She looked at me. Her eyes were wild. "It won't start, Tiffany," I shouted through the glass. She rolled down the window just an inch. "What did you do?" she hissed. "What did you do to my car?" "I did not do anything to your car," I said calmly. "I just removed the starter relay. Last night, while you were sleeping in my guest room dreaming about spending my money, I was out here with a socket wrench." I reached into the pocket of my overalls. I pulled out a small black plastic cube. I held it up. "You cannot drive a car without a starter relay," I explained. "And you cannot run away from your problems when you are parked in the middle of a crime scene." She stared at the part in my hand. The realization washed over her. I had taken away her house. I had taken away her money. And now I had taken away her legs. She was trapped. The police officer stepped up beside me. "Step out of the vehicle, ma'am," he said. "No!" she screamed, rolling the window up. "You cannot arrest me. I did nothing wrong. I am calling my father. I am calling the mayor." "Officer, the door is unlocked," Saul Goldstein said, stepping forward. He held up a key fob, a duplicate I had made weeks ago. Saul pressed the unlock button. The locks popped up with a cheerful chirp. The officer opened the door. "Get out, ma'am," the officer repeated, losing his patience. Tiffany grabbed the steering wheel. She clung to it like a drowning woman clinging to a piece of driftwood. "No," she shrieked, kicking at the officer. "Get away from me." The officer did not play games. He reached in, grabbed her arm, and pulled. She came out of the car in a tangle of limbs and faux fur, landing on the gravel on her knees. "Get off me!" she yelled, struggling. "This is assault. This is police brutality." Ms. Dubois Saul said, using her maiden name again, his voice cutting through her screams like a scalpel. "You are not being arrested for assault, although resisting arrest will certainly be added to the list." Saul opened his briefcase. He handed a thick file to the officer. "Officer, these are the affidavits and the digital evidence collected by myself and Mr. Moore's private investigator, Mr. Michael Vance." Big Mike stepped out from the shadows of the workshop. He had been there the whole time, watching, protecting. He nodded at Tiffany. "The file contains audio recordings of Ms. Dubois conspiring to commit elder abuse." Saul listed ticking off the charges on his fingers, specifically conspiracy to involuntarily commit a competent senior citizen to a state facility for the purpose of financial gain, conspiracy to commit medical fraud by bribing a physician to falsify records, and attempted grand larceny regarding the fraudulent transfer of the deed. The officer listened. He looked at the file. He looked at Tiffany, who was now panting in the dirt, her eyes darting around, looking for an escape that did not exist. "Tiffany Dubois," the officer said, pulling her hands behind her back. "You are under arrest." The sound of the handcuffs ratcheting shut was the sweetest sound I had heard in years. Click, click, tight. Tiffany froze. The cold metal on her wrists seemed to snap the last thread of her sanity. She realized the act was over. The victim card had expired, the rich socialite mask had shattered, and what was left underneath was ugly, pure unadulterated hate. She twisted her head around to look at me. Her face was contorted into a snarl that made her look like a feral dog. "You did this!" she screamed, spittle flying from her lips. "You planned this. You set us up." "I protected myself," I said, looking down at her. "There is a difference. You are garbage," she yelled, struggling against the officer's grip. "You are nothing. You are just a dirty old black man playing with wood." The words hung in the air. Toxic. Ancient. The police officer stiffened. Saul stopped smiling. Big Mike took a step forward, his fists clenching. There it was. The truth. She did not just hate me because I was old. She did not just hate me because I was in the way. She hated me because she thought she was better than me. She thought her white skin and her blonde hair and her fake pedigree made her superior to a black man who built his fortune with sweat and calluses. She had married my son, but she had never respected his blood. I looked at her. I did not feel anger. I felt pity. Pity for a soul so small it had to stand on the neck of another to feel tall. "Is that right, Tiffany?" I said, my voice low and steady. Dirty. I held up my hands. They were stained with walnut oil and dust. "These hands built the roof you slept under," I said. "These hands signed the checks that paid for your car. These hands built this school." "Dirt washes off, Tiffany, but that rot inside you, that is permanent." She screamed, a wordless sound of rage. She started kicking the police car. "Get her in the car," the officer said, disgusted. He shoved her into the back seat. She threw herself against the window, screaming racial slurs, screaming curses, screaming that she would kill us all. The officer slammed the door. He turned to me. He looked embarrassed. "Mr. Moore, I am sorry you had to hear that," he said. "Some people, they just do not know how to be human." "It is okay, officer," I said. "The trash always reveals itself before you throw it out." The officer got in the car. He turned on the lights. The cruiser pulled away, its tires crunching on the gravel, carrying Tiffany away from her mansion, away from her G-Wagon, away from the life she thought she deserved. I watched the car disappear down the road. I stood there in the driveway of my school. The G-Wagon sat there useless and dead, a monument to vanity. Saul walked up beside me. He put a hand on my shoulder. "It is done, Thad," he said. "The papers are filed. The restraining orders are in place. She won't get bail. Not with the flight risk and the fraud charges. She is gone. And Andre? I asked, looking at the empty road where the black SUV had vanished. Saul sighed. Andre is in the wind, Thad. Maybe the mob will scare him straight. Maybe they will put him to work. Or maybe... He did not finish the sentence. We both knew the other option. I looked at the school. The lights were still on inside, illuminating the workbenches. I saw Big Mike inside picking up a broom, starting to sweep the floor. He is not my problem anymore, I said. I have 20 students coming on Monday, Saul. Kids who need a chance. Kids who need a father figure who won't let them down. I have work to do. I turned my back on the road. I walked back into my school. The air smelled of wood. It smelled of clean, honest work. I walked over to the wall switch. I turned off the big neon sign. But I left the work lights on, because the darkness was over, and it was time to build. The police station was a sterile maze of fluorescent lights and the smell of stale coffee. It was a place where hope went to be processed and filed away in manila folders. I sat in a small interview room, my hands resting on the metal table. The handcuffs were gone from Andre's wrists, but he looked more imprisoned than ever. He was wearing a gray jumpsuit provided by the county because his expensive suit had been torn during his abduction. His face was bruised. His lip was split. The mob had been rough before the police intercepted the SUV 2 blocks away from the school, thanks to a tip from Big Mike. Andre was alive, but he was broken. He sat across from me, hunched over, looking at the table. He could not meet my eyes. He was shivering, not from cold, but from the kind of deep, bone-chilling fear that comes when you realize the safety net is gone. Dad, he whispered. His voice was a rasp. Thank you for coming. I knew you would come. I knew you would not leave me here. I did not smile. I did not reach out to touch his hand. I just looked at him. I am here to say goodbye, Andre. He looked up then. His eyes were wide, bloodshot. Goodbye. What do you mean? You have to get me out. You have to bail me out, Dad. Those men, they said they would kill me if I did not pay. You have money. I know you do. Tiffany said you moved millions to Zurich. Just pay them. Please, I will pay you back. I swear, I pay you back. The eternal lie of the addict. The mantra of the son who never learned the value of a dollar because he always had his father's wallet. There is no money for you, Andre, I said, my voice calm. The money in Zurich is for the trust. It is for the school. It is for kids who actually want to learn how to build something. It is not for paying off gambling debts. And it is certainly not for bailing out a man who tried to steal my home. Andre started to cry. It was not a dignified cry. It was a weeping, sobbing mess of snot and tears. Dad, please. I was tricked. Tiffany. She manipulated me. She told me we deserved it. She told me you were old and confused. She made me do it, Dad. I am a victim too. I slammed my hand on the table. The sound echoed like a gunshot. Andre jumped. He shrank back into his chair. Stop lying, I said. Stop lying to me and stop lying to yourself. Tiffany did not make you gamble away $2 million. Tiffany did not force you to forge my signature on those loan documents. Tiffany did not make you stand there and watch while she threw your mother's Bible in the trash. I leaned forward. You chose her, Andre. You chose the easy way. You looked at me, your own father, and you saw an ATM. You looked at your heritage, and you saw a cash grab. You are not a victim's son. You are an accomplice. Andre shook his head violently. No, Dad, no. I love you. I always loved you. I wanted to be successful, like you. I wanted to build something. You wanted to steal something, I corrected. Building takes time. Building takes sweat. Building takes splinters in your hands and dust in your lungs. You never wanted that. You wanted the suit without the work. You wanted the mansion without the foundation. I reached into my pocket. I pulled out 2 things. The first was a small black book, Beatrice's Bible, the one Tiffany had thrown in the garbage. The cover was bent, but the pages were still holy. I slid it across the table. This is all I have for you, Andre, I said. Your mother read this every night. She prayed for you. She prayed you would grow up to be a good man. Maybe if you read it now, you can find whatever part of your soul you sold. Andre looked at the Bible. He reached out a trembling hand and touched it. He started to sob harder. Dad, I am sorry. I am so sorry. I pulled out the second item. It was a piece of paper, a folded list. I slid that across the table too. And this, I said, is a list of public defenders. Good lawyers, honest people who work for the state. They will help you with the fraud charges, and they will help you negotiate with the creditors. Andre looked at the list. He looked at me confused. Public defenders. But what about Goldstein? What about your lawyers? My lawyers represent the trust, I said. They represent the school. They do not represent people who try to defraud the trust. Conflict of interest. Andre. He stared at me. The realization was sinking in. He was on his own. Truly, completely on his own. You are leaving me here, he whispered. With them. With the sharks. I stood up. I buttoned my coat. I am not leaving you, Andre. I am letting you go. I am letting you face the consequences of your own life. It is the only way you will ever learn. If I bail you out now, you will just do it again. You will find another Tiffany. You will find another scheme. And next time, I won't be here to stop you. I walked to the door. I put my hand on the handle. Dad, wait! Andre screamed. Please, do not go. I am scared. I stopped. I did not turn around. I know I said, you should be. Fear is a good teacher. I opened the door. The officer outside nodded to me. Keep him safe, officer, I said. He has a lot of thinking to do. I walked out of the interrogation room. I walked down the long hallway. I could hear Andre screaming my name behind the heavy steel door. Dad. Dad, come back. I did not stop. I did not look back. I walked out into the lobby. Saul was waiting for me. He stood up when he saw me. He looked at my face. He saw the pain there, the deep old pain of a father cutting off his own limb to save the body. You okay, Thad? Saul asked softly. I nodded. It is done, I said. We walked out of the station. The sun was setting over Chicago. The sky was a bruised purple and orange. It was beautiful. I got into my truck. I sat there for a moment looking at my hands. They were old hands, tired hands, but they were clean. I had lost a son, but I had saved a legacy. And somewhere in a cell, Andre was holding a Bible and a list of lawyers, realizing for the first time in his life that the bill had finally come due. I started the engine. I drove away. My shadow stretched long on the pavement ahead of me, solitary, strong, unbroken. I had a school to open. 6 months have passed since the day the police cars rolled away from my driveway, leaving tire tracks in the mud and a silence that felt like a blessing. The Chicago winter came and went, hard and gray, burying the city in snow, but inside the Thaddeus Moore Trade School it has been warm. Not because of the expensive heating system Tiffany wanted to install, but because of the work, because of the sweat, because of the fire that burns in the belly of a young man or woman when they realize they can create something with their own hands that nobody can take away from them. I am standing on the catwalk, the one Tiffany thought would be a hallway to her master suite, looking down at the main floor. It is 10 o'clock on a Tuesday morning. The workshop is alive. It hums with the sound of band saws and sanders. It smells of sawdust, pine resin, and coffee. It is the best smell in the world. There are 25 students down there now, kids from the neighborhood, kids who were told they were trouble, kids who were told they would end up in jail or dead before they hit 21. Now they are wearing safety goggles and leather aprons. They are measuring twice and cutting once. I watch a young man named Marcus. He is 18. He reminds me of myself at that age. Angry, quiet, strong. He is working on a dovetail joint for a cabinet drawer. It is tricky work. It requires patience. I watch him struggle. I watch him get frustrated. I watch him almost throw the chisel. But then he stops. He takes a breath. He remembers what I taught him. He adjusts his grip. He taps the wood gently. The joint slides together. Perfect fit. He looks up. He sees me watching. He does not smile, but he nods. A sharp, respectful nod. That is worth more to me than any dividend check from Zurich. Big Mike walks the floor. He is the foreman now, the head instructor. He trades his hard hat for a teacher's patience. He walks over to Marcus, slaps him on the back, and points out a small flaw in the grain. Marcus listens. He does not argue. He learns. The front door opens. It is not a G-Wagon this time. It is a modest sedan. Saul Goldstein steps out. He is walking slower these days, but his smile is still sharp enough to cut glass. He waves at me. I walk down the steel stairs. My knees still ache when it rains, but I feel stronger than I have in years. Purpose does that to a man. It acts like grease for rusty joints. Thaddeus Saul says, shaking my hand. The place looks incredible. I see you finally found a use for that ebony wood. I chuckle. We did. The students cut it up. We are making high-end jewelry boxes. We are going to sell them at the charity auction next month. The proceeds go to the scholarship fund. Tiffany wanted to live inside that wood. Now it is going to pay for someone's college degree. Poetic Justice Saul. Saul nods. He pulls a manila envelope from his briefcase. I have the final judgments, Thad, he says, his voice turning serious. The court dates were yesterday. I thought you would want to know. I wipe my hands on my apron. I motion for him to follow me to my office. It is a small, glass-walled room in the corner of the workshop. It has a desk, a coffee maker, and 3 chairs. No marble, no gold leaf, just business. We sit down. Saul opens the envelope. Tiffany Dubois, he reads. Convicted on 3 counts of fraud, 2 counts of elder abuse, and 1 count of conspiracy. The judge was not amused by her performance in the courtroom. She tried to cry, she tried to faint, she even tried to fire her public defender mid-trial, claiming he was part of the conspiracy against her. And the sentence I ask, 5 years, Saul says, state penitentiary, no parole for at least 3, and the judge ordered full restitution. They seized everything Thad, the jewelry she hid, the designer clothes, even her shoe collection. It is all going to auction to pay back the creditors and the legal fees. She is bankrupt, completely and totally destitute. I nod. I do not feel joy. I do not feel sadness. I just feel a sense of balance restoring itself. The scales have tipped back to center. And Andre, I ask. My voice is quieter now. Saul sighs. He looks at the paper. 3 years, he says. Plea bargain. He admitted to everything. The gambling, the forgery, the collusion with the mobsters. His cooperation helped the feds take down the lending ring that was squeezing him. That earned him some leniency. 3 years, I repeat. He is in a minimum security facility downstate, Saul continues. He is working in the wood shop, Thad. He requested it. He told the warden his father was a carpenter and he wanted to learn the trade. I look out the glass wall at the students. I look at Marcus fitting another joint. He wants to learn the trade now, I whisper, now that he is wearing a jumpsuit, now that he has no other choice. It is a start, Thad, Saul says gently. He wrote you a letter. Saul slides a white envelope across the desk. It has my name on it in Andre's handwriting. It is shaky, humble. I stare at it. Do you want to read it? Saul asks. I pick it up. I feel the weight of it. Not today, I say. I put it in my desk drawer next to Beatrice's Bible. Maybe in 3 years, Saul. Maybe when he walks out of those gates and proves he can stand on his own 2 feet. Until then, words are just wind. I need to see the timber before I trust the structure. Saul nods understanding. He stands up. You are a hard man, Thaddeus Moore, he says. But he says it with respect. I am a builder, Saul, I reply. I know what happens when you build on a cracked foundation. You have to tear it down and start over. Andre is in the demolition phase. Let us see if he has the guts to pour the concrete when he gets out. Saul leaves. I watch him go. I walk back out onto the floor. The lunch whistle blows. The machinery winds down. The sudden silence is filled with the chatter of young voices. They are laughing. They are arguing about sports. They are alive. Big Mike walks over to me. He is holding 2 mugs of tea. He hands one to me. He looks at the office where Saul just left. Bad news, boss, he asks. Justice Mike, I say, taking the tea. Just Justice. Mike nods. He looks around the room. He looks at the sign on the wall. Thaddeus Moore Trade School. You know Thad, he says, taking a sip. You never did have grandkids. I know that ate at you for a long time. You wanted someone to leave this to. Someone to carry the name. I look at the 25 kids eating sandwiches on the workbenches. I look at the projects they are building. Tables, chairs, bookshelves. Things that will last. Things that have value. I look at the empty space where Tiffany wanted her grand staircase, and I see a ladder to a future she could never imagine. I have children, Mike, I say. I have hundreds of them. They do not share my blood, but they share my sweat. And that bond is stronger. Blood can turn toxic, Mike. We saw that. But sweat is honest. I walk over to a chair that sits in the corner. It is a white oak rocking chair. I built it myself last week using the scrap wood from the demolition of the old paneling. It is solid. It is simple. It is perfect. I sit down. The wood is warm against my back. I rock back and forth slowly. The rhythm is soothing. I take a sip of my tea. It is hot and sweet. Tiffany wanted a throne. Andre wanted an ATM. They wanted the world handed to them on a silver platter. They did not understand that the only things you truly own are the things you can fix when they break. They are in cages now, cages of their own making. And I am here. In my school, sitting in my chair, I smile at Mike. Good wood does not fear fire, Mike, I say, tapping the armrest of the chair. It just hardens. It endures. Only rotten wood fears the heat. And we burned out the rot, Mike. We burned it all out. Mike grins. His gold tooth flashes. Amen, boss, he says. Amen. I close my eyes for a moment, listening to the sound of my students, my legacy. We are going to take it all, she had said. And in the end, she was right. I took my dignity back. I took my peace back. And I took my future back. Class is dismissed. Greed is a carpenter that builds its own coffin. My son and his wife looked at a mansion and saw dollar signs. I looked at wood and saw a future for those who truly needed it. They thought silence was weakness and patience was senility. They forgot that the strongest trees grow slowly and silently, but when they fall on you, they crush everything. You can steal a man's money, you can insult his name, but you can never steal his wisdom. In the end, they wanted to take it all, and they did. They took all the consequences. Did you enjoy this story of justice served? Let me know in the comments below where you are watching from. If you believe that integrity is worth more than gold, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more stories of the underestimated fighting back. See you in the next one.